Good evening and welcome to Pi Day, meeting of the Westborough Advisory Finance Committee, March 14th, 2024. We're meeting at Memorial Hall and Town Hall, our 27th meeting of fiscal 2024. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted in person and via remote means in accordance with applicable law. This means that members of the public body as well as members of the public may access this meeting in person or via virtual means. In-person attendance will be at the location above, and it is possible that all members of the public body may attend remotely, with in-person attendance consisting of members of the public. This meeting may be accessed remotely via the link in the agenda. When required by law or allowed by the chair, persons wishing to provide comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so by in-person attendance, accessing the meeting remotely, as noted in the agenda. Additionally, the meeting will be broadcast live in real time via Verizon Channel 28, Charter Channel 192, or via Westborough TV's online platforms at westboroughTV.org and youtube.com/WestboroughTV. This meeting will be recorded and live streamed by Westborough TV, and we thank them for their support. Okay, we got a busy night. We have some more articles to go through and our R&R to approve at the end. I'm sandbagging slightly because Beth will probably be late. So I would like to actually just start with the approval of the February 29th minutes, if I can get a motion.
So moved. McMahon, second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, we're all here, so we can just vote. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Nope, okay. So the minutes are passed 8-0-0 with 8 present and all in person. I'm just checking to make sure Beth doesn't come in. Okay. Let's see. So we have some items to vote and we have some guests to those articles. We were talking about, and again, it would make sense that before we vote to have Beth here, because we forward last time and we're trying to get an odd number. Anyway, our first topic, I think, would be the IT salary and wages, and Mark's, oh, sorry.
Public comment?
Oh, yeah, I skipped, sorry. Go ahead. Forgot about that. Thanks for reminding me.
Wilfred Savoy, 41 Chestnut Street. I was happy to see last Monday that the town manager and board of selectmen have taken action to at least reduce the estimated average residential tax bill from $957 to $852. So they're using some free cash and other reductions to do that. So certainly very happy to see that. The $450,000 in free cash, I believe, is part of that reduction. It is not. Okay, that's good to know.
Just for clarification for the public, I guess, the reduction came from lower interest rate on our borrow because of our good credit rating, and we were able to get a better loan, and also a re-looking at, based on the local revenues we are getting in, restaurant, hotel, meal tax, and excise and things like that. Good. They're running enough higher that they were comfortable in increasing the estimates on those. So that's the main thing. And the landfill budget decreased because of the proposed methodology. So.
Hopefully that landfill expense will not be passed on to the taxpayer in the form of a fee, a higher fee. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. You know, the transfer station.
Yeah. So
that has not been settled yet.
There's a proposal which is a lower price sticker with pay-as-you-throw bags.
Okay. So anyway. That's good news, and I'm hoping that the select board and the town manager are still considering the use of that $450,000 in free cash. It's still on the table.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's how we even got to where we were before.
Very good.
Yeah.
It's still a very high increase. There's no question about that, and we're in very difficult times. We know that inflation is really eating away at a lot of people's income, and you just have to go to the food store and you know that things are much higher, gas pump much higher, energy much higher. So I'm certainly continue to advocate for that increase to go down dramatically more. The FY 24 tax bill was estimated, in comparing it with the other 14 towns, the competitive or dashboard towns that the town likes to compare Westborough to, we rank 9th out of 15 in terms of the average, what was the average tax bill for a residential tax bill. What my point is here tonight is that the median household income, and that's something we're going to look at, and that's on page 75 in the budget, in this town budget, shows that Westborough ranks 13th out of the 15 towns. So what is that telling us? That's telling us that the median income of people in this town is at the low end of the scale. And so that if we have a tax or a total budget that's up on the high end of those 15 towns, we're just not living within our means. So that's my point, that in looking at the town and looking at the profile of the town, the median average income for people, it ranks 13th out of 15. Somewhere around $118,000, 118, 120. That's from the U.S. Bureau of Census. So keep that in mind as we go through the budget process and see what we can do about it. I have some certainly suggestions I won't get into now, but for next year and how to avoid this. And also for this year, there are some things that we can do to bring that down further. But I thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Wilbur. Okay, so now, seeing nobody else here for open forum, let's ask Mark. You'll join us. On this, I still don't.
How much you want to bet no one has to tell Mark how to hook up his
I was going to
computer?
say, if we have to tell Mark how to plug in,
This is actually a
we're in
test.
trouble.
Oh, the projector's gone.
Yeah, it's over there. There you go.
All right. Oh, that's right. You guys are ahead of things. So I'm just going to go right to the GIS operations summary.
Sure.
So as you can see, the GIS administrator covers a lot of ground. And GIS operations have been expanding in recent years quite a bit. We're no longer keeping up, and so that's why I'm here asking for the additional hours, and to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, so we received a note from Mark too, which kind of detailed the use of the extra hours. And the reason we're discussing this is we weren't able to pass budget we 4-4'd at our last meeting, so hopefully when Beth comes, we'll at least have an odd number of people as opposed. So are there any questions for Mark on this? We're all set. Andrew? No.
I just had one question on that. So when we mention about the load that is coming up on IT, have we seen, could you quantify some kind of delays or some examples of the delays that have happened just because you were short-staffed, or is it all because of anticipated load which is going to come up because of the
No,
work?
that's certainly one of the elements that we're talking about is stormwater, but even without the stormwater, I would still be coming here to ask for more hours.
Okay.
I mean, right now, we're not doing everything on this list the way we should be. Maintenance is, on GIS data is suffering. We're
Mhm.
not able to, get all the mapping and other applications, everything up to date is on a timely schedule. And it's starting to eat away at the operation. And we don't see that stopping. We see growth continuing.
Thank you.
I guess the question I would have, and, we're all faced with making difficult choices, hard choices. And, if we were to postpone this for a year, are there opportunities to engage a consultant to perhaps do some of this work? I'm just trying to find creative ways to manage the budget.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand the situation. So, it's like with any kind of maintenance and upkeep. The day after the budget's passed, yeah, there won't be any huge issues unless something breaks. But, it's something that over time, kind of like maintaining a road. If you kick the can down the road, yeah, you're fine for a little while, but it's going to come back.
Would just to slightly follow up on that, but would a consultant actually be less money than adding hours to an existing employee? I'd be surprised by that, because an existing employee already might be paying benefits and everything else already. So I don't know that you could find a consultant for greatly less money otherwise.
I mean, there are consultants out there that we can do, but all these different things cover so much. There's so much breadth here. It would be hard. We can get a consultant to do this or a consultant to do that, but to do all these things,
a lot less hours.
We're very fortunate to have the person we have right now.
And the person you have want to work more hours?
Oh yeah, no. Actually, we're probably going to
That's
lose that
important.
person if we don't. But that's not a decision point that should be added here.
Okay, thank you, Mark, for your
Thank you.
time and effort. We're gonna probably hold off the vote till we get, hoping that Beth will join us, would be my strategy. So why don't we go to the next one on recreation, salary and wages, and we have Jennifer Kirkland, our Director of Recreation, which sounds like such a cool thing to be. Because it sounds like my job is recreation.
The director of really fun stuff.
Yeah, all things fun.
That's it. So I do have a presentation. I don't know if there's any specific questions. I can go through it. It's really up to you. I don't know how much I can run through it quickly. If I can get this plugged in.
Mark
Mark.
just laughed too.
I should be able to oh, there we go. I got it.
Maybe Mark should come to all our meetings.
All right, then I'd go for it.
So I
Can
can
you
just
send it to
run
you?
through quickly what I have, and then I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, just a quick background
Yeah.
to get everybody back up.
Yeah.
Just the reason you're here tonight is we had a similar issue with the addition of a person at the, who will be at the
Yeah.
community center. And so it's, I think, fair to get a little more background on that as
Yep.
part of the decision process.
Perfect. So I'm Jen Kirkland, I'm the Recreation Director, and similar to what Mark just did, this is our current department operations. I won't read through this entire list, but without having our own space, I think we do a pretty good job of offering a lot of programs and activities for the community, all of which will remain once this building is up and running. We run a very robust basketball program. We run a pretty large summer camp-style program. On top of that, we maintain a variety of outdoor facilities, tennis courts, pickleball courts, 2 cricket pitches, athletic fields. We're a part of a lot of the major events in town, including the block party, the Halloween Main Street Trick or Treat, the Winter Stroll. So all of that will remain. And all of our programming right now takes place at night at 6 p.m. or later, and some weekends. So now with this new building, we really feel there's a need for another program coordinator to program all this additional space. We'll be able to program, you know, from 8 in the morning till 8 at night, essentially 6 or 7 days a week. So just, you know, some immediate responsibilities I foresee for this position. You know, they'll plan and promote programs and events primarily at the community center. They'll work with the senior center director to work on ways to incorporate senior programming in the top level while the senior center or the bottom floor gets fit up. They'll also work with other community groups in town, you know, the library, Westborough Connects, the Rotary, because we anticipate that there'll be a lot of desire for rental space or collaboration once this building is up and running. And then sort of long-term, it would be to just, you know, obviously continue to program at the community center, help oversee the pool. The town has never run a pool before. Having just gone through the pool operator course, it is a big undertaking. So that's sort of where we're at with the position. I can go through kind of just to be clear, it's a sample of what, you know, programming might look like at the building. This is not set in stone by any means, but this is sort of what I have envisioned. So we have kind of 4 or 5 main spaces to program. We have a basketball court, an exercise kind of fitness room, 2 multi-purpose rooms, and a spin studio. Well, it won't be a spin studio anymore, but another kind of multi-purpose room. So there'll be all of these opportunities you can see on the screen for programming, and these are just ideas that we have come up with in the interim. Again, just ideas. This is not set in stone schedule, but this is all in addition to everything that we already do. So I'll leave it there. I don't know if I'm happy to answer any specific questions.
Okay, so this position also would start on January 1st of 2025, I think, because it's a half-year position.
Right, so
approximately.
our revolving fund will fund the first part of the year, and then we're asking for the second part of the year.
Okay. And will there be on July 1st enough of this building open and running to have that person there?
I think so. I think that especially by July 1st, I mean, when we close,
That's good news, because
I mean, I don't want to make
we
any
haven't even bought it yet.
promises. Right, I know. But we have, you know, I've been with the department for 10 years, and for 10 years, we have just hoped and dreamed of wanting our own space. So, and even our staff now that haven't been with the department as long, they're chomping at the bit to get in there. I think definitely by July that we'll be up and running and ready to program for sure.
Because the upstairs is more already suited for
already-
your
right.
needs as opposed to.
I mean, that basketball court
it's not being
alone, we
fitted
could,
out.
I mean, if we just had that basketball court, we could do
Yeah,
a bunch
lot
of things. Never mind all the other space that
Got
is
it.
ready to go.
Okay, let's see who has questions.
An observation and a question. The observation, and you hinted at this, is the fact that you'll be coordinating with the senior center. So the notion of the community center as having a space for the senior center and a space for recreation is a misnomer, because there's a core for senior and a core for recreation, but there's so much overlap that the real boundaries for each of them is much larger, and having a program director is going to be a force multiplier for whatever we can do for the senior group as well. So I think that's a positive. Secondarily, the question I had, though, was when you talk about the additional programs and more programming, most of that programming doesn't involve really high-intensity expenses, I suspect. The basketball nets are there. You know, are there any incremental expense line costs that you would expect to support with additional programming? And would that even be different whether or not you had this person hired as an additional resource?
So if I'm understanding, as we operate now, all of our programs pay for themselves. So if we
Okay.
need shirts for basketball, that comes out of basketball fees that we charge. If we need lacrosse sticks, you know, we need paintbrushes for summer programs, it comes through user fees. So I would expect that
Okay.
any programming that we do at the community center would be set up the same model.
Okay, thank you.
Rod?
I guess that leads me to my question, which is kind of a better understanding the revolving fund, and is there an opportunity to fund this position through the fees that you get?
I'll let Christy talk about money.
We certainly expect to support a lot of what goes on at the community center using the revolving account. Right now, all of our full-time rec department staff, of which, as Jen mentioned, we only have 3 full-time staff for recreation and then 1 for golf. or come out of the operating budget. So the revolving fund is anticipated to fund all of the programming that happens there, all of the salaries of the part-time individuals, which is a large building, so it's going to need a lot of people part-time, similar to Jen's summer programs, which are fully funded through the revolving account. As we move through the space, we'll talk about, and we're living in the space, we'll talk about any additional charges that we could potentially use out of revolving account or revenues, but that could be maintenance, it could be electricity, other things like that. So right now, what we can commit to is that all of the part-time staff and all of the programs will be fully funded by the revolving account.
What sort of funds are generally, or what type of revenue is generated by the revolving account?
What type of revenue?
Yeah,
All the
in other words,
fees.
No,
he
how
means
much? How much?
dollars.
Do you have the,
Just rough,
do you have that? You want to know what the balance of the revolving
balance would
account
be,
is?
yeah, that's a good question.
Looking it up.
I guess the question I have, and again, these are all hard decisions, but would there be an opportunity to relook at this again at the fall town meeting, once we have a better handle on what's being done and what's needed? Or what would be the impact of waiting to the fall town meeting? I guess that's a better question.
So this position is budgeted for halfway through the year. Jen intends to bring them on using the revolving account as an alternative funding source because I said we're not bringing them on until halfway through the year under the operating budget. And so I suppose that they wouldn't come onto the budget, though I will say that Jen will hire this person prior to fall town meeting. So
I think what Rod is suggesting is to hire someone out of the revolving account with no plan to move them to the budget. And I suspect the answer to his question is you would not be able to hire someone under those conditions because you would only be able to hire them as a temp employee.
If you
for-
could only fund the
Yeah.
position for 6 months, it's going to
Yeah.
be pretty hard to recruit for a
Correct.
position you could
Yes.
only commit to funding for 6 months.
I think that's what your question was, right?
Some-
And then go to,
somewhere
Thank
then
you.
go to fall town meeting
Yeah.
and then ask to put it.
I mean, I think it got
To
a little more
increase the budget.
complicated because of we're funding it, I thought it was starting in January, in which case you could wait
So-
for fall town meeting and actually do that. But if you're starting
Not if
somebody
you're
in June, you
trying to
can't.
start somebody
Right.
in June, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, right. So the intent of moving all of the positions was sort of uniform to that January start date was a uniform decision, which is why we did it equally in recreation, planning, and finance. Which actually we ended up not being able to do it with finance, as for all the reasons that you all are aware of. As we look at this building and we consider all of the ways that we're going to make this building active, there is a lot of work to do, and I don't think it's reasonable that we would do it with our existing staff for all the reasons that Jen just showed. And I do think that the community has an expectation that we just spent $8.8 million on this building, and they expect to be able to use it and expect it to be programmed.
Yeah, I mean, I have a bit of a concern of you're opening up a new building to the public, a lot of people first time there and all that, and like the idea of not having the janitor or something, or not,
That is a
and
big
not
concern.
having a
That would be a
person
big
there as much dedicated to it, I think is a mistake in a new public building. And so, I mean, that's why I thought the janitor made sense to me too.
Yeah,
'cause
so, I mean, certainly there's a custodian that's dedicated to the library. We have a custodian that spends a significant portion of their time at the senior center. These are buildings that the public is coming in and out of. There are many programs, similar if you think about the number of custodians that the schools have in their buildings. It's significantly more than is needed in, say, the town hall, where we don't have as much in and out and people with things going on.
Makes sense. Any other questions here? Mr. Savoy, do you have a quick question?
Question. Can I just make one point before you take the
Yeah,
question?
sure. Okay. Here comes the number.
One of the things about the revolving account that you have to realize, and this is the reason, part of the reason why the salaries come out of a budget, is because they're one-time funds in the sense that if the programs don't bring in, you still have people organizing, planning, and making the programs go forward. You know, you need the staff in place to to plan and put forth the programs. There are programs that they run that they generate that are not necessarily immediate return, like the block party, like the downtown trick or treat. And that's why you run a risk of relying too heavily on that for staff. And I can tell you, without staff, you know, your existing rec department works very hard to do a lot of planning. And that building that you're going to close on next week that you want open to the public likely will not be open to the public for hours that the public wants, because your existing rec staff can't supervise and run programs. They can't do that all day long, you know, because they have jobs that they do now. And so it's one of those things where you spend the money on the building, you want it open and functional to the public. And I think that's part of what their goal is with this position. So they can hit the road running, someone will start programming and make active use of the building as quickly as possible. I think that's really where the target is for this, because we want the community to be able to use the building that they're buying.
Also, I mean, I would think if you run swimming classes and nobody comes, you will offer less of those and offer the badminton classes that are filled with hundreds of people. That staffing can come and go because they're hired for a class, right? Whereas you're talking about, you still have the same people that plan those events and are at least, you know, put those up on the website and collect the money and organize all that.
Right, so the people that are working kind of in the building would remain, but yeah, to your point, if we run a, like bubble soccer and it doesn't take off, okay, maybe we don't run that again. But we kind of know that ahead of time, so it's not like we're losing money. We know 2 weeks out, all right, we only have 3 signups, we cancel, no loss.
So you do cancel programs if they're not.
Yes, if there's low
they're not
enrollment.
viable.
I mean, yeah, for the most part, there's, yeah.
A quick question?
Wilfred Savoy, 41 Chestnut Street. I read on the library webpage that they offer putting contests for kids and exercise programs, and I'm wondering if those programs at the library are coordinated with the recreation department, or are they independent?
I would say they're independent, but with that said, I do work with the library director often. So if she, for example, she wanted to run like an intro to pickleball night, we worked together on that. We helped advertise for each other. We were able to, she had equipment, she used our courts, but on her, day-to-day or week-to-week programming is independent of ours.
Yeah, I would say generally the library programming is a one-off.
Yes.
Whereas you're offering more of a class, or you can play volleyball for eight weeks or 12 weeks.
And typically the library programming is free because it is a one-off, like come try it out type of thing. Ours is, there's a fee, try to keep it low, but it is because it's a class that's over a course of time.
Any other questions?
Just curious, did you come up with a balance, John? Still working on it.
Well, I mean, the balance is kind of a moving target. I'm just looking for the numbers that had finished last year.
Okay.
Prashant has a question.
I just wanted to clarify and make sure I understand this correctly. So this budget that we are talking about is more for the extra program coordinator. Custodian has a separate role altogether, which falls with DPW, which is, as I read in the budget book, is for the routine maintenance of the locker rooms, the gymnasium, etc. in the community center, which will still continue to happen. The essential maintenance of the community center. What really we are talking about here is for the program coordinator to coordinate all the extra programs that will come up when the community center is available. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's correct. I brought up the janitor only because I thought it was important to have that
Okay.
person.
Yeah, that's what I
As an
just wanted to make
example,
sure I've
because
understood
you
correctly.
have
Yeah.
a public building and.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So again, don't have Beth here yet, so going to.
Do we know if she's planning on attending?
She texted me and said she was going to be late. She didn't say
Okay.
she wasn't coming. I'm probably going to be late.
Just wanted to make sure we weren't waiting and hadn't
Yeah.
heard from her and she wasn't coming, or?
Well, it's
Well,
some
again,
point we'll move on. I guess.
So just to give you an idea, they run about 300,000 through the account a year, with typically 250 or so, $50,000 net break even year. You know,
Perfect.
it varies quite a bit, but, yeah, it's not like a slush fund, so to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess one other idea, and then I'll, what if we hired a part-time, 20 hours a week person for the full year out of the revolving account?
Are you asking if it was a part-time, could it be funded through the revolving account?
Yeah, in other words, instead of half the year, full-time out of the revolving account, funded half-time for the
we-
full year.
Right.
And then next year, we'll know what we really need.
But then we would have someone in a part-time position,
Right,
right?
right.
Yeah. So we know that we will need a full-time program coordinator.
Okay.
And that is how we're going to propose it.
Okay.
I think we also know, as I said, that we need a lot of part-time staff. I mean, that money will pay part-time staff, vendors, and all of the associated fees. So we don't want to hire someone part-time and then change it to full-time when we know the need is full-time.
Okay.
I guess if I'm gonna hold off on that vote, I think the next thing is talk about free cash, because I know Rod was interested in the motion we're gonna make, which currently is for $450,000 of free cash. You had I had some interest in you presenting a little bit about free cash, because it's educational. We have new members and also any public. I suspect something like this might happen at town meeting, so it's useful information. Have any?
Did you present a number?
No.
Okay, I walked in a
We
few
haven't
minutes
heard
late, so I
the
wasn't
number
sure.
yet, but I'm trying to do
Fair
things
too.
we don't. we don't
Once I
know.
understand it better. I have a couple of questions that perhaps you taking us through it will answer that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's beneficial to go through it for this group and for the
Just-
public anyway, so.
I agree. I was just wondering what I was up against.
I guess, I don't know.
Let's see. Sorry, my computer. I'm just buying time for Beth. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a slide showing the average single-family tax bill increase estimated as of 2025. Last year, we ended the year with $621 increase, which at this time last year, we were projecting a little over 800. So as all of you know, as we get closer to November, things change. This is our use of free cash. I've shown the slide before. It's in some different colors here, but you can see that the sort of light blue line is the balance of free cash that we've had each year. The dark blue line is the amount of free cash that we're using. That little orange line or yellow line there, bar, is showing how much we transferred to stabilization last year. And that really all is reflected as following our fiscal management policies. So you can see that as our free cash has grown, we're using more of it. So, and we're using it per our policies.
So I'm sorry, I can't read
Yeah.
the number, total number this year is what?
So this is inclusive of what we used at Fall Town Meeting, and it's 5.5 million.
So that's use during fiscal 2024, or is that this annual
use during-
town meeting?
Used during fiscal '24.
Because the stuff that we vote free cash at this town meeting is immediately spendable.
Correct.
So they're effectively, even though we're talking about the fiscal 2025 budget,
Right.
the articles that are free cash are really fiscal 2024 articles.
Right, because
Okay.
the state certifies free cash every year, and you
Right.
can't use that free cash until it's certified, and then you can only use it for that fiscal year, because at the next fiscal year, they'll recertify.
Okay, so this is a total of everything proposed at this upcoming town meeting, plus whatever we spent, whatever we agreed to spend at fall town meeting. At the
Yes,
past
this
fall
past
town
fall
meeting.
town meeting, yes,
So-
exactly.
Thinking ahead, at some point at the end of June or whenever they get to certifying it, July or something, we will spend, during calendar year 2024, we will use more free cash at the fall town meeting potentially.
Right, but that doesn't really impact, that doesn't impact our balance.
Right.
Yeah. Every year when we talk about, when
But
I
that,
do,
that will affect the tax rate if we made those rates inappropriate versus free cash.
yes, and I have a slide for that.
Okay.
Yeah. Trying to think what I was gonna.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So when I come to October town meeting and I do my slides, I always say, we're always really high. We're high on our fiscal management policies, and the reason for that, which I always say, is because we use most of our free cash at the annual town meeting. So this is a full year picture of the use of free cash. So about 37% of our free cash. This 30% that I'm showing for last year does not include the transfer to stabilization.
So how does this year's articles affect this slide?
That's the blue line.
The dark blue
includes
line.
That includes
this
all
year.
the articles on the
Okay,
warrant.
Okay,
Yep.
okay,
Yep.
okay.
All the articles on this warrant and the warrant we did in October.
Yes.
And does that include the 450?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Are you looking for a number?
Yeah, I'm putting the numbers into the spreadsheet I had sent out earlier, so I had compared it not just to the balance, but to the change year over year, right? So the excess revenue from the prior year closes out to the current year, and then we spend that in warrants. So I took these numbers because I had done a rough scan through the PDFs to key it in. And if we look at, so in 23, we closed out to free cash about 5.6 million, and then our warrant articles were a total of 5.5 million. So we're really taking any excess free cash, certifying it, and then using that free cash in the next year's warrant articles, which is what we've sort of been talking about and think makes sense, right? So we say, look, we estimated our revenues as best as we reasonably thought, and we underspent some budgets, and some things came in over, and we've got a little bit of extra, and we turn around and allocate that in the next year into capital projects and one-off spending. And based on this, I mean, it's maybe a couple $100,000 a year difference. Like, we're really close to closing out the prior years and allocating it in the current year to projects. So based on, again, my thrown together spreadsheet, because I'm not an expert, but it looks like we're doing a really good job of matching those, which is what I would expect to happen. We don't want to overestimate our revenue, but we also don't want to just continue to build free cash forever. And I think that our town management team, finance team, seems to be doing a really good job of making recommendations on where to spend free cash that really aligns with the extra from the prior year. Gives us that cushion if for some reason tax revenue came in low, but also isn't just growing this balance and overinflating taxes.
So what, maybe you'll get to this. but
I have
what-
more slides. yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I
No,
totally
it's
jumped
okay,
in
no.
the middle of your.
Appreciate it.
There's not too many people she gets to talk at this geeky level about free cash, honestly, really. So.
It's very exciting.
You
It's not
guys
often that
we're
people are stuck
really
listening
into
to
it,
me
you know.
either.
It's not your it's not your dinner conversation.
Well, we talk about it all the time.
So So I always talk about our comprehensive fiscal management policies, and I just want to reiterate the process of how we develop these. So that it is a policy of the select board and fully informed by the recommendation of the Advisory Finance Committee. So if you look at, I don't have a slide for this, but if you look at the front page of our comprehensive fiscal management policies, which is in your budget book, there are many, many amendments to it. And some of them are in recent years, and all of those have come through this advisory committee. So related to free cash, our policy says free cash in excess of the town's goals. So I'm going to show this paragraph many times, but so I think that's really important. We want to keep within our goals, and our goals are that we would keep a balance of free cash 5 to 7.5% of our general fund operating budget, a balance of stabilization 5 to 7.5% of our operating budget, and combined would be 10 to 15%. So this is right from your book, and it shows here all of the use of our free cash. But what you can see here is that our free cash after the annual town meeting will get us at about 7.58% of our operating budget, stabilization just below at the 4.75%. And then we're right in the middle of that 10 to 15%. So we are within our goals using this free cash, and we are using the excess free cash to do the things that we said we would do with our excess free cash. So
I just have a question on that slide, if you don't mind.
this one?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I was having trouble, I think others may have, the 124 million operating budget, what does that, where does that number come from?
Where does it come from?
Yeah, in other words, I couldn't do the math to come up with 124 million. So it doesn't include the enterprise funds, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's just
So-
general fund operating budget.
But I thought it was like 122.
Yeah, but there were two other items that
Okay.
John pointed
Right.
out
It was
when he answered that
retirement.
question.
Yeah, he did.
Because we put
respond.
money into OPEB and,
The Worcester
John, do you
Regional.
remember what it was?
Worcester
I think it
Regional
was
Retire-
Worcester Retirement.
Yes, Worcester Regional Retirement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's not in.
And
the
then there
regular
was
budget.
one subtraction because we had done, I don't remember which, but there
I
was
don't
some,
remember what that
it was plus OPEB minus,
I rely on Jay
Yeah.
for this one.
Yeah, so it
Yeah, I
makes
think
sense,
I
right?
sent out
If
an
we look at
email on
our
that.
most recent budget table is slightly less, and so the OPEB was 2 million a year, is that? I don't remember what the OPEB total was. I'm trying to get to the 124, because we're at 122 plus OPEB.
our OPEB this, in
Are you
this
asking how much we put
budget.
in?
Yeah,
So
how much?
600,000
Is it only 600,000?
this year. Plus Worcester Regional, which do you have that number? Oh, he's pulling up the email
I
that
mean,
he
they're
sent to
close
Walter.
enough, I'm not gonna really.
Yeah.
I'm
It
comfortable
was-
with the difference.
Okay.
For one, it's estimated budget, and that's the thing. It's always gonna be sort of a
Okay.
moving target,
Okay.
right? It's not, we're gonna say,
Well, it
this is
actually
the perfect budget for recreation, and Jen's gonna say, but I didn't need all that paper, right? And so there's
Okay.
always gonna be a little bit of a,
Okay. I'm good if you're good.
yes, I'm comfortable with the 124.
So then in that paragraph, this paragraph then lists all the things that we have decided as a community that we are comfortable spending our free cash on, and we decided that because it's a best practice. So one of them is non-recurring or emergency expenditures. So non-recurring expenditures are our capital articles. So here I've listed all of the capital articles and the use of free cash. So we are spending $2.1 million on capital requests for this fiscal year. That's what we're asking. Which if we had to raise and appropriate that, it would be $264 estimated, an increase to the average single family. This slide shows all the other articles. So the capital articles are that 2.1 million. All the other articles, which are also one-off, so the open space and recreation plan, the municipal decarbonization plan, the purchase of Zero Bowman, which we're gonna get reimbursed through a grant, all of those equal 1.7 million. And then our current year fiscal adjustments are the legal budget, the finance department budget, and the finance committee reserve account. The next thing that we said that we would do is we would use it to lower the tax rate. So again, it's free cash in excess of our goals. And we're proposing to use that $450,000, which is a structural deficit that we created in fiscal '23 in response to COVID. And something that we have talked about every year as something we need to back off of, but this is not the year to do it.
Was
So
FY
can-
'21 the first year that we used free cash to offset?
Yes, yep.
I'm sorry, Christy, could you explain what exactly structural deficit means?
So a structural deficit is when we use one-time revenues or one-time reserves to fund an operating expense.
But what's the impact? How does that, is our assumption that that's gonna catch up with us the following year? Is that?
That's what you would
It's
create.
not an assumption, that's a fact.
Right, so the
That's
idea is,
math.
the last
It will
3
happen.
years, we've offset 450,000. If we don't have 450,000 next year, our tax rate will increase by that additional amount because we've already approved all of these other things in the budget. So for example, we've already approved a capital project in which we've borrowed and principal and interest is due. But if we don't offset the principal and interest expense by that 450 we're using free cash for, we all have to pay it next year. We're already obligated.
Right.
So we would either have to come up with $450,000 worth of budget cuts to keep our tax rate the same, or we have to continue to fund out of essentially one-time funds a budgeted amount we've already approved. And that's the problem if we increase this amount, right? Is now next year, if we said this year we're gonna spend $1 million, and next year this fund can't support $1 million, we have to pay next year's tax increase and this year's tax increase that we offset by that $1 million. So that's what she means when it's structural, right? Like, we're just gonna keep compounding it. We're really hiding that increase by using one-time funds to offset our rate.
But I think that there's another option where we could find this money, which would be if we had fewer, the fewer capital expenses, because that's where else this free cash is going. So this $450,000, if we spent $450,000 less and this is sort of the part that I think is hard to speak of. We talk about how we're balancing and all that stuff. That's true, but we're only balancing because at some point we're overcharging, and that it's wrong to say overcharging. It's pejorative, but we are collecting over $1 million of revenue, $2 million of revenue from our people, our citizens that wasn't budgeted for anything, and now we're able to use
It
that
wasn't
money.
not budgeted for anything.
So okay.
So for an example, a great example of that is the Youth and Family Services Department.
Okay.
So we budgeted roughly $250,000 for that department. We couldn't fill the positions. So that money closed out to free cash. So it was budgeted for a purpose, and we just were unable to spend it.
So some of it will be, but a lot of what we do for our free cash for capital, and mind you, if you thought our capital plan was terrible and we were buying a lot of things we didn't need to, this would be where you'd go to save it. And I think the saving grace is our capital plan right now, which uses free cash, not all of it, but the portion of it uses free cash, is a sensible investment that we would have probably taxed somebody for anyways, so that that money that we're collecting in taxes that weren't spent elsewhere are being spent on something that makes a ton of sense. So same thing with this $450,000 or the $700,000. I mean, the reality is we could bump it up, and it doesn't have to support a structural deficit. It doesn't have to be a structural deficit. It could be offset in spending for capital.
So let me clarify.
It is a structural deficit.
By definition.
By definition, it is a structural deficit.
But so Andrew, is your point, so next year, if we wanted to not offset the levy with free cash, we would just spend less in capital for 1 year to see that?
So that some of the free cash that we had left over, which is not nefariously collected, and I'm not suggesting it is, but some of that free cash that we had left over, we could be using for other things that, or not using because we didn't collect it. So we just, if we did something that didn't collect as much revenue, if we had fewer taxes, we would have less money to spend on our capital expenses or some of these other
So
things.
we could not utilize it to offset and not purchase.
Or just never
Right.
collect it.
But so I mean,
So the never collected part is the
well,
option
so
here.
but that comes down to the revenue budget, right? And that's where we've had this conversation, and to some extent I've looked at it with John, and so I'm going to be the nerdy accountant person and tell you here. For the most part, what happens is not that we are. I would argue that it is not we are overstating the levy, that we are overtaxing people on their property taxes. there's a good argument for those one-time or differences. The largest variance comes in those other pots of revenue. Permits. Maybe we have an apartment complex, maybe we don't. And those one-time things that vary from year to year, same as one-time expenses, are really the unpredictability here. So now we could say, well, we just always have something come in, so I'm gonna increase our revenue budget and just assume we don't know where it's gonna come from, but I'm sure somebody's gonna give us a bunch of money and we can spend that free cash, because that's the risk. So if we don't increase the levy and we don't offset it, then we just hope more money comes in from somewhere else, and if it doesn't, we can't meet our obligations.
We can make fewer capital purchases
Yes.
with leftover money. Those are
Not if there's no leftover
But
money.
that's
But
the
not if-
point,
right.
is that
But
there's
$9 million.
but there's a couple things, and there's a little bit more in my presentation, but you to what Jane is saying, we don't know where that money is coming
Yep.
from every year. So to just assume that if it was coming from the same source every single year and we just weren't estimating it,
And
then
we're
that
doing a
would be a
terrible
good
job charging
argument.
it.
But that's not what's going on. The money's coming from, I know we've given the example before, but most recently, a settlement to litigation. That's
Yep.
not gonna happen every year. We can't assume that that these one-time funds are going to be increased by things that we can't anticipate.
So it's almost like we wish we had like an extra reserve sitting aside, like say 10 to 15% of money just sitting aside somewhere, that we would have to be able to account for this on a one-time before we need to have to really course correct. And in fact, that 5 to 7.5%, there's a decision to be made. That's $1 million, $1.2 million per percent. The fact we're around 5% for one, but we're at a full 7.5% for the other one. That's great. We're hitting targets that were within plan, and it's a great plan. But why couldn't it be at 6%?
Because it's the best practice under the GFOA. And
Is to go to the top?
Let me keep
Okay.
going, because I think
We're
that
at
it will
12,
speak a
which
little
is
bit
right
more
in the
to it.
middle.
No, we're at 5
But-
and it's 7.25.
Okay, so the next thing that we say
0.03.
that we'll use free cash for is to fund unfunded liabilities, such as retirement or OPEB. So we do that. So we created an OPEB funding schedule. Again, we all agreed to this, and this is the schedule that we're on, and we've been following it. So we used to be at $1.1 million for our OPEB. We're working our way back up to that so that we can fund our obligation. And in this fiscal year, we're using $200,000 of free cash per our plan.
Do we expect to be fully funded in FY '29?
No,
How underfunded is the plan?
significant.
Less underfunded.
I think we're about
It's-
10%
yeah,
funded right
we're-
now.
Yeah.
So the idea was that we're way underfunded on Worcester retirement too, but somewhere, in about 10 years from now, we
Yeah, they keep
kind of
pushing
catch
that
up.
number.
And so at that point, we could put more into OPEB.
Right, we have an
Because-
unfunded, we have pension liability that we are paying that was supposed to be fully funded sooner than it actually will be, and that's through Worcester Regional, that's not something that the town did. And so once that is fully, and that's actually part of the policy, that once that's fully funded, that money will be pushed over to OPEB to work to fully fund that, but it won't be fully funded, we'll just fully get back to that 1.1 million.
And I think one other component I remember about this is our credit rating as a town was tied to the fact we had a schedule, we mapped the schedule, and the credit company thinks that that's appropriate.
That's my next slide.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Thank
What a
you.
great lead-in.
So
Well done,
it's just
Andrew.
bigger than this, the OPEB thing, I think, so, thank you.
Um,
Oh, that's a
So-
good slide.
So the bond rating impact. So we talk all the time about the importance of following our fiscal management policies. They do. There's a series of things, that documents and questions that bond rating agencies ask us before our bond call. So we need to provide them with this policy, so they have full visibility to the policy, so that they can agree or not that we are following the policy. So we are following the policy, and we did provide them with all of that information, and we got on our bond rating call last month. And as a result of that call and the documents that we provided, we remained a AAA community. And so some of the things that they noted in our letter, and this is just an excerpt from our letter, that we have very strong management with strong financial management policies. So I think adherence to adopted and embedded management policies. So they talk about that as part of the reason that we received the bond rating that we did. Then there's a section about our outlook. So they gave us a stable outlook, which is great. But they do present a downside scenario. So they could lower the rate. This is exactly what it says. We could lower the rating if reserves were to decrease significantly due to pressure from debt service and retirement costs or other factors. We are using 37% of our reserves. We are within, it's significant. It's a lot more than we've used in the past. We are within our policies, and that's what we will tell the bond rating agency next year. So there is an incredible risk to use more than what we have proposed. We would create a structural deficit. All of the things that Jane just said are true about what that would require us to do going forward if these one-time funds were not coming in. We sent you out the free cash advisory from the Division of Local Services that talks about the importance of free cash and how that free cash is created. And that's exactly what we do. And the bond rating agency is telling us that they will lower our bond rating if we use too much free cash. So it's not the only thing that we get rated on, but it's important. And that's my last slide.
So do you happen to have the slide where you compare our free cash to other communities?
I can pull it up. Just see which one it is. I don't know if it's in here. I'd have to look for it.
Okay, but it's on the higher end, if I
Yes,
remember right.
it is on the higher end.
Are any of the other communities AAA rated? That
I'd
don't have this
I'd have to
level?
look.
Okay.
I think one of the points, though, one of the points is that we follow our fiscal management
Sure.
policies, so I don't know what their policies are.
Sure.
The other is that a significant drop in free cash beyond our fiscal management policies or our goals is going to require some very clear reason for that. And nothing big and unforeseen is happening. We're not using it because we have a pandemic or anything like that. If we're just using it to lower the tax rate, it's going to be an issue.
I thought I saw one chart somewhere where, or maybe in here, but our sort of guesstimate of free cash at the end of the year would be about 10 million right now if we do what we do.
That's in your book. So I think that's here, this number here.
Yes, so that's sort of the,
9.4.
I think it disappeared.
At the top, it's on the top row there.
Okay. Oh, yeah, but on this particular screen, it shifted.
Oh,
Oh, okay, 9.4. Okay, so it's
9.4.
less than 10 million.
yep.
And so the certified right now is 14 and change, or 14 and
It's the
Wait,
14.
almost 15.
So right, but we've already used that 1.3. That's under the 2023 FTM transfers.
But, so to that 9.4, will there, I mean, if there's over revenue or underspent, that will get added to that? So it is possible that next year at this time, the free cash is at 12 million or 11 or
Yes.
anything in
Yeah.
between?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything that,
Because that seemed like a very large change just from spending this much, but it doesn't have anything new added to it. Correct, okay.
I don't know if I'm. I don't know if I'm following, so.
Oh, so
like-
normally at the end of the year, in June, there'll be more, I guess, I don't know if the right word's generated, but this is taking the certified free cash, subtracting what we're spending this year only, and ignoring the fact that we might accumulate at the end of the year, there might be another million or two or whatever
Yeah, I
of
mean,
free
we.
cash added.
Yeah, I wouldn't say
And
we're
you
ignoring it, we
no,
just
no.
can't estimate it.
Right, you're not
And-
allowed to estimate it.
Right.
Well,
So you
but
have to
if you-
put in your numbers what it is.
Well, these numbers
If you
are.
reasonably could estimate it, you'd have put it in the budget, I think is sort of the point, right? So
Right.
we're saying, we started with 14 million, we're gonna spend 5 million, and we're gonna end up with 9 because we're assuming everything else comes out exactly the way we estimated it in the budget.
And-
Correct? I mean, that's if we rolled the budget forward and spent the free cash we're proposing, that's where we would end, correct?
Yes, in this current fiscal year.
Right.
I think the free cash is a little bit different than maybe other things that we've talked about before, where it has the guard, it has a very clear July 1 to June 30.
Yeah.
And then you certify. So that number can go up and down depending on what has happened in a particular fiscal year.
Yeah, so it's, for instance, some amount of money from Youth and Family Services will be increasing, will be free cash, but
Right.
unless we
assuming
transfer
that-
it to other
Right,
departments.
assuming that in May and June,
We
it's
then
not
have
needed
to
in a different
transfer.
budget, right?
Got it.
Yes.
So the fiscal policy we talk about is the staying between 5 and 7.5%. And it matters as individual buckets because we're literally transferring money between the two buckets because wink, we're between 10 and 15, but we need to stay between 5 and 7.5. So we're making a decision at some point, hopefully the stabilization comes above 5% because technically we're out of policy for that, but wink, we're okay because we're at 12%.
I don't know what the wink means,
The
but.
wink means it's not a violent, clearly we're not being dinged for it because we're staying in the 10 to 15. So the fact that one amount is lower than 5% is not killing us at this point. And it says like our fiscal policy has to be between 5 and 7.5%. We're below 5%. We're so far below, we're actually taking from another source and adding to it because we want to bring it up to 5.
We're not, we did last year.
We did last year.
Right,
So
and then we talked about the fact that that's
Okay.
a number that you chase because as the operating budget goes up, that percentage changes.
Sure. So, but the idea between 5 and 7.5. So there's a decision being made, a $2.5 million decision being made in the free cash area to stay closer to 7.5% than 5. And we probably don't want to be really close because if it comes too far down to 10%, the 5 and the 5, then we're really starting to run afoul of that concern. But would we be at risk if we were at 11% instead of 12%? I don't know. I would imagine not much.
be-
It might depend what you spent it on.
It would depend on what you spent on, but it would also not be free cash in excess of your policies that you're spending. You're spending free cash that's not in excess.
But it's not in excess, but you don't have to keep the full extent. Like that's other people's money. That's not the town's money. It's money that the town has collected from people that we have as part of our reserves, our stabilization.
I'm
or free
talking
cash.
about, we're all the town.
Yes.
So, yes,
Oh, I'm aware.
100%. So I
But-
don't know what you're saying.
The idea that we could spend, that conceivably, to Rod's point, conceivably, I believe we could spend a little bit more. Technically, yes, against the structural deficit, but because we have the extra money, but because we're already balancing the money that's come in and we're spending what we need to on the capital plan, that it's all for good, we could technically draw down our cash reserves more without violating policy, but still to offset some of this historically high tax, the proposed tax levy. And I'm still waiting to hear where that is the kind of thing that puts us at risk with our credit rating or any of these other pieces that we're mindful of.
Did you want to say something?
I think the point that Christy made a minute ago about the operating budget changing from year to year. So if the budget goes up next year and you don't have those reserves and you're at 11%, you very quickly fall below 10% simply by the movement in the operating budget. Okay? And so as your operating budget changes from year to year, it goes up, that percentage changes and you need to maintain that percent. And so, if you are too close, if you were at 10% and you didn't have reserves to add, the next year the operating budget is going up. You are now below your 10%, just like that. And what they've always talked about relative to the balance between the two is the benefit to having a free cash versus stabilization is it's more liquid, more accessible.
Yep.
Okay, and so that's part of the reason why we don't get, as you mentioned, dinged in the same way as long as we're between that 10 or 15%. Okay, because that's the overarching policy. There are many communities that have it tied up more in stabilization than free cash, and they are much more restrictive on how they would pay for a roof design because they don't have that.
Which is what we showed last year. We showed warrants for communities that every single thing that they're doing on a for their capital is a raise and appropriate, which is exactly what we showed here, which would be $500 to the average single family.
So if the budget goes up and your percent goes down, then you can't necessarily spend the amount that you've put into your structural deficit, much less items of capital. or you'd have to reduce somewhere, because you gotta rebuild up your free cash.
Well,
Well, you
and so
can't-
on that note, Andrew, your point was you could reduce capital, but so if we, say we wanted to bring that free cash as low as we can this year, right, which all sounds great, our tax rate is as low as it could possibly be, and it's delightful, and then next year, we didn't have excess revenue, we didn't close out additional funds, we can't raise our operating budgets at all, right, because we're now capped by, we have to have that 10%, we can't raise our operating budgets, and also we don't have funds to fund capital. So next year, right, and this is certainly worst case scenario and everything possibly goes wrong, but we spend down as much as we can't increase our budgets, we can't purchase any capital, and next year, all of our expenditures are capped at this year's budget amount.
There's another problem, too, is that if it does affect your credit rating, then all your borrowing costs.
And
go
all your
up,
borrowing goes up.
Which
Sure.
is a large number.
And I
Anyway.
accept all this, so this is all a question of risk, but I guess
Yeah.
where our budget is changing by $1 million a year, a couple of million a year, if we're talking about something where we're now eating through all of the money we have for our capital expenses, plus all of our free cash, we're talking about something that happened to our town where suddenly our expenses have jumped by $8 million, $10 million? Like, bigger things are going wrong than our budget rating. Something has gone horribly wrong if we're suddenly off by 15, 20% in our budget.
I mean, which is probably true, except for that a credit rating downgrade could have pretty significant impact and exacerbate any worst case scenario, right?
I'm
When
not
all of a sudden our
advocating
rate
for
goes
that.
from, we got 4 something is what we're forecasting for our rate this year, and all of a sudden our rate goes up to 6 because we're at an A2.
And I'm not advocating for that, nor am I advocating for spending all the way down. I'm advocating for an understanding where Rod thinks that there is some more money we could put towards that doesn't take us down to 10.01%. That there is I think there is a reasonable argument to say, if not 450, maybe 650. So just off the top saying, no, we can't do that, I think that there's room for conversation about it.
I will fully agree, and I absolutely think the conversation is valuable and worth having, and we should continually
Yep.
have the conversation. So I am not
So-
opposed to having the discussion and
But-
debate. I think that it makes sense.
Yeah. But 80K, $81,000 it's about $10 on the tax rate.
So,
So you just gotta keep in mind when you said 200, you're talking about $30 maybe.
And maybe.
Is it worth doing
well,
it to have the
yeah.
other effects?
I mean, think about the risk.
Again, that $200,000, I don't see a risk. But, and I'm putting money in an amount.
Yeah, I think that's why we disagree.
okay,
Yeah.
okay,
That you-
so.
'cause you don't
so
see a
here-
risk.
Here's, first of all, I think the town does a great job. I appreciate, all the information you provide and putting up with questions from me. It doesn't understand it as well as you. However, a structural deficit to me has 2 meanings. One is what you're talking about. The other structural deficit is to our taxpayers who are paying $850 a year. That is a real structural deficit to me. So what can we do to minimize that? And to me, one of the things I was going to talk about later is we treat each of these capital articles like they're with the same level of scrutiny as we would if they are raised and appropriate. I don't think we do. We hear free cash and we keep spending those. So in a year that we have an $850 increase, we need to look at those capital projects and cut down on them. So, I think, so I've come up with and this may be pie in the sky, but I've come up with my number, which deletes most of the capital projects this year. And if you look at my voting record on all the projects, you can add them all up. They'll come to this number with the exception of one, which I missed, which was $35,000. So my number is, if we do not pass 10B, I can share this with everybody, but this is just for effect. 10B, 10F, 11B, 11F, 11G, 11N, 11O, 11P, 13, 15, 16, 20, and 33. That's $1,972,000 of free cash that I would propose we don't spend this year. And we find some way to use that to reduce our taxes. To me, a couple thoughts. One is, obviously, put that back to the taxpayers directly. The other question that I had was, could we use that to offset some of our borrowing?
So the borrowing component of using free cash is a slippery slope as well, for similar reason. One thing you should know while you talk about the risk to our credit rating, we just went out to borrow, and there was 25 million in permanent debt and 45 million being rolled over in short-term debt. In doing so, we got an effective rate of just over 3. Okay, we got a $2.4 million premium back. That means a lender out of New York paid us $2.4 million because our credit is good, right? And that's what reduced the debt budget by over $400,000. You know, that is a indirect way that by being conservative, okay, that you are giving back to the taxpayer. You're reducing it out of their tax bill? In essence, yes, because your debt budget just went down, right? If you risk that, it will go the other way, and it will go the other way substantially. The other thing that we just did is we just, as we mentioned to you, reviewed our receipts. And we adjusted our receipts in a couple areas. As I told you, we do that throughout the year, okay? And we'll continue to do that. However, understandably, if we adjust our receipts too aggressively, that free cash number for next year will be lower. Your tax bill will not go up as much this year because we were more aggressive with our receipts, so you'll have less revenue above our estimates, you know, and hopefully it doesn't come back the other way, because then I'll be looking for a job maybe. But that impacts your free cash available for next year, which of course then has this trickle-down effect. One of the things that Krista just pointed out to me, oh, sorry,
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about, we spend, in our community, we spend a lot of time focusing on the average single family increase, and it makes sense. And I think it helps us understand our budgets relative to other years and other towns. But when we go to town meeting in next week, we're not asking the town meeting voter to vote to increase their taxes by $853. We're asking them to approve budgets that have been vetted by all of you, by the selectmen, by all the departments, and we are asking them to approve those expenses. When we don't set the tax rate until November, so there are budget adjustments that happen in October based on, you know, all sorts of things, based on needs and all sorts of things. Last year we reduced the landfill budget, we increased other budgets. If the sole purpose of increasing free cash is to make the number whatever number you're hoping it will be, I would suggest that you review that for October and not now, because in October you'll have a much better understanding of what the tax rate was going to be set at in November. I mean, I still don't think that we should use more free cash, let's be clear, but we're so far away. I mean, fiscal 25 isn't even going to start for 3 months.
Yeah, and, well, I think the problem with this theory of Rod's theory is town meeting will decide whether you approve all this capital or not. And if we start with the budget with the assumption that none of that capital will pass, and we're going to use $2.5 million in the budget, it just seems like it's irresponsible to be proposing all that capital. In fact, this committee supporting
We've already
the purchase
recommended
of all that
almost
capital
all of it.
and say we're not going to use it at the same time.
So I mean, ultimately, it's the people to vote, and whether they agree or not. I mean, the difficulty I see is it's very hard for anybody at town meeting to make an impact. I mean, we tell them to, you know, go through all the articles and see which ones they agree, and if you don't agree, then they'll have. But how do you make an impact by single articles here or there? We need a program that allows us a solution to lower the taxes, and I'm struggling trying to figure that out. And I don't say that this is completely right, but we can't have this level of taxes without. I mean, I'm just frustrated.
Yeah, and it is exceptionally difficult because if we don't buy any equipment, that's a problem too, you know, because you replace stuff that
But-
you need.
So I don't necessarily agree with your assumption,
Yep.
but I do have an answer for you, and it's with the school committee. I mean, if you want to reduce the tax burden, we have to stop funding the schools. I'm not in favor of that, but that's where you can have the biggest impact. It'll crush your property values.
Well,
Which will cause other problems, but-
That's a strong statement.
It's not,
Well, the other mechanism is.
but that's the reality. I mean, that's where most of the town money is spent, is on the schools.
But is this the year to be spending $500,000 on roof design? I mean, just as an example.
Well, as a
You need
committee,
it.
we spent a lot of time talking about it and voted yes.
Yeah. Well,
I understand
No.
you don't agree, but
But I
we need to
think-
print this tomorrow, so I don't know that we really can spend that many hours going back and talking about that.
No, and all I'm saying is, each article on its own makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
But if you don't have a budget you're weighing it against, then it's, I mean, I realize you go through a process, but, we're spending whatever it is, $2.5 million on capital projects in a year that the taxes are going up $850,000. I mean, it's just,
So the other mechanism for changing this, because the nibble strategy, to your point, is a very hard one. The other one, and then it's something that we haven't tried, is let's just approve a budget that is 1% lower, for example. Like across all of them, equipment, people, the whole thing, there's flavors of that. We'll do 1% less for people, or something to that effect. I mean, that is enormously more effective, but it ends up transferring the responsibility onto all the other individual groups as to how they would manage that. And that might be the easiest way instead of this nibble strategy, which is so much harder. But to the question about the capital spending, I think the way I came at it, at least personally, because I did try and talk about pulling a couple of things back, but we agreed, no, this is, as a group, we're going to go all up and in. But I think that the reality is we have the money because of the free cash to sustain this. It's very much to Jane's observation, money in, money out. But the reality is I think we need to be playing differently about the money in so that we can pull that back potentially. But also there's so little chafe in this, I think. Like the things we're getting are things we're doing to be a sensible town. We replace our dump trucks before we're unable to use them. We replace our, roofs before they've caved in. Never mind the people damage, like from a straight up cost.
some of them.
That
Some of
part
them,
might not be.
But we do our best. The reality is we decided not to fund that before because we had a plan, and Hastings has been this crazy hodgepodge of trying to get ahead of itself in a lot of ways. And every year those decisions were made. They made sense to try and play the game of risk. It didn't work in this time. And it's our clarion call as to what can go wrong. I would say the idea that we are risking things, that we are losing anything if we risk something, that's not true. It's only if we risk something and we lose that risk. Like if we pull $200,000 more in free cash, for example, offset only $30-ish, that's only going to bite us if something changes where that number comes down. If, on the other hand, we end up to the plus, it was a risk we took and we come out ahead. So it's a risk game. We play risk with the number of ambulances we have, with the number of police that we have, with the number of fire we have, with the number of snowplows we have. Those are all risks we take every year. The investment we make in capital proactively is risks that we're playing. So the idea that the risk is going to get us trouble, no. The occasional missing something and then falling for that, being caught by that risk is what's going to get us in trouble. But it's an educated, non-malicious way of deciding kind of how close can we come to that curve, so.
All right, I think it's time to move forward here. But I don't see Beth coming in, so I'd like to start taking some votes because we have to do our R&R as well. And it's already 8:20, and I think we're going a bit. No, we're done with public comment at the moment. Thank you. We've been at this for quite a while, and you've had a chance to speak for several times. Okay, so I'd like to vote the two budgets first, and then
All
We'll
right.
go back to free cash.
McMahon, I move to recommend the town approve for information technology and communication salary and wages, a budget of $369,898.
Is there a second?
Second, Bradley, second. Oh, perhaps say Bradley.
Okay, so this, effect of this is revoting the number we voted on, was it Monday night, which is 369,898. So, just for clarity.
The only comment I would,
Oh, yeah.
or if we're doing comments, no, I'm sorry.
Yes,
didn't
go
mean to.
ahead, please.
I view IT as a force multiplier, and I realize I've said that now twice tonight, but the reality is, if something goes wrong with IT, it affects many other people, and there's many other downstream costs. So staying ahead of IT, making sure, all good things notwithstanding, IT puts a lot more at risk than just the money that's involved here, and I think that I take stock in the strategy they have, so.
I just wanted to point out, I think there was some confusion on Monday about the vote. A portion of this increase is covered by the utility, the enterprise funds, the
Each of the water,
stormwater.
sewer, and
Sewer.
stormwater each have
Yeah.
4 hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
I assume this position is currently non-benefit eligible and will convert to benefit eligible. So this is just the increase in salary. There is additional benefit cost that's baked into the benefit line, though. Okay.
Yeah, so that would have been in the insurance budget that you
Right.
already
Yep.
approved, I guess. So it's not it's not more than this. It
Correct.
It is more than
Correct.
this.
It's not more than what we've
No, this is-
already
yeah.
voted on. It's just in a different
Yes,
line. Yeah.
it's a good point. Okay, anybody else? Beth just texted back that she just left her brother, so she's gonna try, but it's gonna be a while, so, well, we'll see if we're still tied
Our
or
cat
can't come
missed
to
it.
a
He's gone to the
conclusion at the end. Okay, so, we're all here, so, all in favor? So, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, so we basically replaced, Beth with, all right, all those opposed, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, I should probably write these down. Or these-
I got it written down.
Okay, that's good.
I have a question. If a expense was, or salary was to get voted down, presumably that does, how does the number change? Or we just don't recommend
We
it?
have to,
We
we have to
don't
make
change
a
it.
We haven't
number
made a
recommendation.
So I guess the next thing would be, we can either wait a bit, see if Beth joins us or not.
There we go.
Not bad.
I move to revote.
Okay.
McMahon second.
Hi,
Hey Beth, can you hear us?
Yeah, hi, I just joined.
Okay, great. We've sandbagged as long as we could,
No.
and we're at the point of voting
withdraw my
on, right now, the IT
Don't.
budget.
We're gonna revote it. We gotta revote it anyway.
We don't have to. We
We're
can go with a
trying
4.
to get-
We have to make a recommendation.
No, we don't. Our recommendation is a split 4-4.
No, we have to make a number recommendation.
No, we haven't, we don't,
Our recommendation
we
is.
haven't passed
Okay.
a motion.
Right, we have to
So we
pass
could
a
lower
motion.
the number and try again,
Or
or
increase
just
it.
say we
'Cause
weren't
this is budget.
unable, it's like what we did
Thank
with
you
the.
very much.
Yeah, no, we have to revote.
Okay.
Anyway, so Beth, the first
Yes.
motion is at the existing number, 369,898.
This is for IT salaries and wages.
Okay.
Okay,
Uh,
I apologize because clearly this was not how I planned today. Can you catch me up on, are there new people being added? Is there something compelling? Or is this, is this just steps or is there something, like obviously there's pros and cons because we're split 4-4.
Yeah, so,
I have-
it was the same discussion we had Monday night, but this time we had Mark Stockman come in and he also sent an email with information on the importance. The position is extra 20 hours in the GIS department,
Okay,
approximately, because some of it's paid for by other sources. So
Other
it's about
services or
19,000
grants?
something or another more for this department. I have to,
Okay.
yeah. So
and
it's,
I'm guessing that half of you feel that this is an expense that can be put off again. and not necessary
Yes.
at the
Sure.
present time.
You know, it's hard for us to like re-summarize an hour's worth of conversation, but yes. And
Okay.
if you're uncomfortable voting, you can abstain and we'll figure out.
No, I just,
Well, then
that
we
was
have to
the
vote another
refresher
budget.
I needed.
Yeah,
To your point.
but
I mean,
can't,
because-
I mean, what, I can't.
No, I
No, I
can't
understand
perform
you
a
guys-
class here on our reasons, because it'd be
No,
prejudicial
I just,
if I'm the one who says
I-
it, because I'm in favor, or if Rod says it and he's against, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to
Right, no,
say. We've had these numbers for a
I-
week, so.
Because
So
I'm not
Beth,
looking
you
at my
voted
team.
on Monday. Do you have new questions?
I have no new questions. I'm comfortable voting. I just make sure I was on.
Do you think Mark can help us out with this?
Bridge is probably the wrong image, it needs
I'm-
to be a gap.
All right,
Come on, Beth.
Okay.
I'm at my end.
You got this, Walter. You're doing good, man.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay. That's okay.
That's the additional cost of those positions.
Yeah, and that would be the numbers in case we need to vote.
Okay. Please use microphones though.
Okay. So I don't know if Beth's going to rejoin us, but the current impact of this extra bid is $2.44 on the tax rate. And I have the number now of what it would be if we wanted to take away this position, so we could vote that motion if we had to. That's what I asked for, which is approximately $19,732. Well, not approximately, it is. Beth, you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, good.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. I think you just moved, yeah, there you go. So
Okay.
what Jean asked was, you voted on Monday, or is there anything new that you need information on?
No, I feel comfortable with my vote on Monday. I'm okay with voting today. I just wanted to make sure I was on in the right place, since I'm doing this from total memory as I'm driving.
Oh, okay. That's complicated. All right, so yeah, the answer is, it's for an additional, the change for the year, other than the increases that were generated from steps and COLA,
Cola.
is $19,732 more in IT, which is $2.44 on the tax rate, so.
Okay.
Now we have to do voting by
roll call.
thing.
Roll
So
call.
let's start with Prashant, see where we get.
Do we have a message? So is there come on now, a motion on the floor?
Yes.
Yes.
The
I
motion
didn't
and
hear
a
it.
second. I'll use, it's the same one that we just did, so.
Yeah, so we
Which
are
is-
now voting on the salary and wages line item.
At
Right.
369,
Okay, thank you.
898, which is the town manager recommended budget for fiscal
Amended
25,
amount.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay,
which is the same motion we voted on Monday
that we did
night.
before.
Right.
We haven't
Yes.
changed the
Correct.
motion.
The idea was to revote it
Yeah,
with
that's
9
what I wanted
people
to
and
know.
See if we could get a split.
Yes.
Well, we will,
That, I
'cause
apologize.
nobody
That's
can
all I
vote
want to know
half,
is
right?
which level of.
Abstain.
Unless
Oh, you can
someone
abstain.
abstains. She doesn't abstain.
Oh,
That
God.
would be.
Okay, so let's try this.
Ahuja, no?
Okay.
Blumberg, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Brandt, no.
Clap no?
Dolan, yes.
Clap is no. Sorry, Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Shafford, no. Be right back.
Okay, so that is at least a 5-4-0. Okay, and for our book comment, well, I guess we'll get to the book comments anyway. We'll just basically, we'll get that out when we, because we have to approve the comments anyway, so we might as well do that at that point. Okay, next, I would like to revote the rec salary and wages.
McMahon, I move to recommend the town vote to fund the recreation salary and wages budget at $266,551.
Second?
Bradley, second?
Okay, discussion. Nothing different, that much different information than
Do we
before.
wait
Do you want to wait for?
for Rod to
Yeah.
come?
Oh, we'll wait for
Yeah.
Rod before we actually
Yeah.
vote, but I figure we might as well discuss.
Although technically it'd be 5-3, if all else stayed the same. So it's 5-3 versus 5-4.
It depends whether you're voting in favor or not.
No, if
I
all
can't-
else
I
stayed,
can't predict that.
ceteris paribus, if all else stayed the same, I'm the only new change, then
Yes,
it'd be
but I don't know if
5-4.
you're voting in favor or not.
I'd be voting in favor,
Okay.
but you'll
Now
know.
I know. So much for secret ballots.
It's not a secret if I'm
No,
voting.
just kidding.
It's roll call secret, right.
That was a joke.
Done the opposite.
I think it would be fair to wait for Rob, because I think there is a difference
He's
to
right there.
town meeting, whether it's 5-4
Here
or
we go.
5-3.
Robert's rules of humor.
Because 5-4 indicates kind of, it's a split, almost like what we did on
Rod,
the
are you
library
ready to vote?
building.
Do you
Yeah.
have comments?
On what?
Uh,
The IT budget, the library.
Sorry.
Rec.
Rec
Rec
salary.
department.
vote.
Okay, good.
All right.
Prashant?
Ahuja, no?
Lumberg, yes.
Oh, God.
Took a turn. All right. We'll see if we can get Beth.
Bradley,
Oh,
yes.
there's
Oh,
Beth. Hey, Beth.
Did you hear,
There.
Catherine
We'll give her a second. Let's keep going. Josh?
Brant, no.
Clap no.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie,
Lumberg, yes?
Blumberg, yes. Very good, thank you. We got it.
Sorry.
McMahon?
Did you vote?
I voted yes.
Okay. McMahon, yes.
Shafford, no.
Okay, so we're 5-4-0 on that, and we can discuss the comment in just a moment. Okay. My proposal, let me get my list of articles. My proposal is on the Hastings ADA. I have not received an official what the borrow's gonna be from the schools. We are not able to do the theory that was proffered on Monday, because the other money was specifically for design, so you'd have to sort of redo those articles.
We didn't expand the scope enough.
Really?
Yeah, we only allowed it for
was
design.
expanded for design of ADA, not for paying, unfortunately.
Not completion?
Yeah, not for
Yeah.
building.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
So,
good thought, though.
and
Yeah.
you were gonna talk with bond counsel and stuff like that, but I don't know where I think we're either gonna vote this, next Thursday night, if we wanna have a meeting, or right before town meeting, when we kinda know better, cause I think right now we're in a little bit, I don't know the exact number and the motion and all that.
Yeah.
It's still,
On the floor it
at
is.
least unknown to me. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, anytime.
I was just gonna say that, if you go back and look at the article, it is broad but that's not the motion, so you'd have to look at the town meeting minutes. So the actual motion that was on the floor specifically said design, so.
That's important. Motions are important, is what the
Lesson
lessons are here. It's all about the motions. It's like in patents, it's all about the claims, right, Josh?
Very true.
Okay, the municipal decarbonization study as also is not, I haven't seen an absolute fixed number on that, so we're gonna wait. Golf club building, we can vote. So there are numbers now, 32,000 would be from country club retained earnings, 68,000 from free cash. Rod, would you like to talk at all about this, or do people have questions about this?
Isn't that the same numbers we had last week?
It's just the
Yes,
funding that
we
changed.
just never got to vote to it because we didn't, we ran out of time last week, which we're kind of doing here, so.
Okay, or ran out of
Um,
steam. Okay,
Yeah, there's no change in the numbers, it's just, we
Thank
we
you.
did a lot of other voting and discussions last week, so I was trying to keep going.
fair enough. Monday.
Um,
I'm in favor.
Okay, so this is money, just to reiterate, this is a non-exact specific amount of money, but it allows the starting of doing, of working with an architect or somebody to start looking at concepts and looking
Yeah,
at
no,
choices.
I think we have a very specific goal.
Can I ask a question? Can we make this motion general enough that leftover money can be used towards the project? Hint, hint.
Well, we don't make the motions. So, can the person making that motion, I think.
Consider.
Yeah, well,
Isn't Christie in the room? I thought I heard her.
it's only 100,000, Beth, from the point of view of you're not gonna get through your design if you were gonna build anything, much less get to construction.
It would also just close back out to free cash. We would just release the remaining
Right.
funds.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So, I mean, and that's what's happening to the other money that we can't capture for the previous school projects mentioned, right?
Well, that's different because it's a
Is it's
bar.
going back,
It's just a
oh,
little,
because it was a, got it. The other was a
Borrowed,
borrow,
you
but
can't
this is
just,
free
once you've
cash.
borrowed it, you can't go and change easily.
What
Because
it's
people have
for.
lent you money based on what you said it was for, and you can't go spend it on something else.
right, right.
Well, not if
Got
you
you,
wanna borrow
okay.
something again.
But when we don't use it for its intended purpose, then that money has to go, I mean, either we didn't borrow it, we borrowed it, it has to go somewhere if we borrowed it.
Right, and it will go to the HVAC repair project, which the
Oh,
school
you're
still
talking about
intends to
that,
do.
yeah, the money that, in that article that was borrowed will ultimately be used on HVAC.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, it's unfortunate that
I-
it turned out that way.
Okay.
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 So this is just feasibility study, correct? So,
Feasibility, conceptual design, programming.
so I assume that, well, because we've already discussed it, I know, like, I'm really interested in less looking at P3 sort of options or alternative options that don't include debt financing. I assume that this doesn't go in anywhere towards actual design, but really looking at what we want to do, still leaving those sorts of options on the table, correct?
It does, and it actually would make it easier for us to determine how it can be financed based on the size of a restaurant and what that would look like, and how much of the building would be for the golf club, which could come out of the Country Club Enterprise Fund. So it would actually make it easier.
Perfect.
My personal goal is at the end of this, we have enough to put out an RFP for a piece.
Perfect. Because that also, I
okay,
think,
I
would be a great
didn't hear,
solution.
You
microphone?
said RFP for
Micro-
design work? Or,
I'm sorry,
Or
I said
RFP
my
for-
personal goal, I don't know
Yeah.
it's the committee, but I'm speaking as a member of the committee, is we have enough information coming out of this study that we could issue an RFP for a P3 to somebody else to build it, and, you know, we
Ah.
would lease
Yeah.
whatever space.
oh, okay, so then they
Yeah,
do the
that-
design work.
that's-
Yeah.
They do the design, they build
Right.
it, they also carry the debt, which avoids
Okay.
the
Do you
need for us to carry the debt
still-
and alleviate some private use restrictions and.
Do you still have some review capability as a town? Or?
Absolutely.
You know what I
So
mean?
yes,
Oh, yeah.
so if you
You
do a
write
P3, you
parameters.
negotiate the contract and you
Oh,
assign
so your
whatever
RFP would say
KPIs.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Anyway, I think, let's vote, if nobody objects, and make a motion.
McMahon, I move to recommend the town vote to transfer $68,000 from free cash and $32,000 from Country Club retained earnings for the purpose of funding a feasibility study for the golf club building.
Bradley, second.
Okay, that's McMahon and Bradley, thank you, and today's the 14th. Okay, any further discussion? If not, hearing none, Prashant?
OJ, yes?
Blumberg, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Brant, yes.
Clap yes.
Dolan, yes?
Leslie, yes?
McMahon, yes?
Shafford, yes.
Okay, so that is, oh, we actually have 9. 900, not too many of those in the book. Okay. All right, so that one is done. Next, we come to the Fund Afro-Caribbean Festival. We haven't voted that, and so I think you might want to make a motion.
Yeah,
mm,
I'm going to make
towards
the motion to
defeat.
defeat. Is that,
Fine. Yeah, it saves me time.
and it is 32?
Article 33.
30. Sorry,
Blumberg
30.
second when you figure it out.
McMahon,
Pre-seconded motion.
I like that, that's confidence.
That's a zero.
I move to recommend the town vote down Article 33, funding for the Afro-Caribbean Festival
Of $3,500.
of 35,
cash.
yeah,
You should mention
$3,500
this funding source. Thank you.
from free cash.
Okay, and then Blumberg second, okay. Okay, I don't think we have to spend much more time on this. I think we've discussed it
Does-
enough, so.
I have a comment for afterwards.
That's fine, but
Oh,
was
okay.
it germane to what we're putting in our booklet comments, or, because I'd rather do that
Yes.
when we do that. So why don't you hold off, because we're gonna go through those.
Okay.
Okay, did you
This
have another
is
question?
To
comment?
defeat.
Yeah, this
To defeat.
motion is to defeat, just to be clear, a vote in favor is to recommend against the article. That's a
All right.
good clarification, thank you, Prashant.
So Ahuja, yes?
Blumberg, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Brant, yes.
Clap yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Shafford, yes.
It's 900 to defeat, notably. Okay, thank you. Okay, and that's it for things we're gonna vote, so we are going to leave on the table for future vote, the Hastings ADA and MAAB, decarbonization study. I think that's it, right? Oh, maybe it is, maybe we're only leaving two things
We have
on
to
the table.
talk about
Carbonization
Article
study?
Article 8.
Is what?
Article 8.
16?
Yeah, no,
Budget?
we still have to do that.
Okay.
The things, but I'm just trying to make sure we didn't miss any other articles we wanted to vote
Okay.
tonight. By my
Article-
color code, it looks like,
16 is TBD, right?
thanks, 16, yeah, I got 16 and 12B
Right.
as the remaining ones not voted. Does anybody have any others? 'Cause we technically voted all of 8. The thing we want to talk about is the motion for number 8, which is basically, I would suggest we start with a motion that, since it's our motion, that we will go forward with the 450,000 free cash, and if you want more, then vote that down, and then we would start motions on how much more, I guess. And if you're happy with that
Well, wait.
number, vote yes.
Don't we vote the highest amount first?
Well, it's not really a spending thing. I just want to sort this because it might eliminate us voting 14 other times. If people object to that, I'll do it the
I
other way.
agree.
But
We
to
do the
me,
450 first, we see if we
there's
get
only
consensus.
2 or 3 people that want to change the number, why should we spend hours? And then you also don't know that you should have voted for a higher number, because when you get to the lower number, it gets defeated. So in this case, I think it makes more sense to vote the existing number and see if there's a desire to change it. And
Okay.
if there is, then we
Okay.
can, then maybe we, I don't know. I would still probably think you'd go low, high, or something, I don't know, whatever. We can
Okay.
figure that out if it's a problem. Okay, so my motion is to leave our motion for Article 8 at $450,000 of free cash.
McMahon,
For the purpose
second.
of?
For purpose of lowering the tax rate, but it's basically
It's your
that whole
motion.
Okay.
motion.
You have to say the motion, that's what the purpose
Okay.
of.
Right.
He
okay.
made the
Oh,
motion.
did he want, okay.
I second
So I
it.
made a motion to leave in our motion for Article
Right.
8 to the number that is $450,000 for lowering, the purpose
As
of lowering the
recommended by
tax rate
town manager.
remains there.
And I seconded.
Got
And I'm doing that to sort whether we wanted to change it or not. Okay, I think we've had a lot of discussion, so let's just vote this and then go from there. Prashant.
Ahuja, yes?
Blumberg, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Brant, yes.
Clap yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes?
McMahon, yes.
Shafford, no.
Okay, so that is 810, so we don't have to vote other numbers for now. Good, all right, well, sorry, Roger.
No,
It's good for me. It's good for John, because we don't have to redo all the numbers in the
Yeah.
spreadsheets
No,
that he has, but,
I think it's a good discussion. I
Yeah.
think it's a discussion that's gonna come up again at town meeting, and
yes.
It's an important
we'll have
one.
more information.
And I think we also had, it's a good discussion. I think we've opened up some stuff that we can explore more in the future, too.
Sure.
Because like part of this, what can you do, is some of this requires longer term thought, as you're saying, is how do how do you change the mode of operations somewhat or something?
How does the taxpayer
Yeah.
impact?
And I think
Other
Gene
than-
had a fair point, because if the town as a whole, everybody voting or everybody shows up for schools, wants to continue having the size classrooms we have, teacher-student ratio, well, it's $450 on the tax rate alone, without including their contribution to the insurance budget, which is, they have roughly 70% of employees, so that's probably 70% attributed to the school, and the capital's probably about 50-50. So, I mean, there's some big numbers there. I personally like spending, have excellent schools, but other people can make those choices, but it's a big choice to make.
Well, it's not all or nothing. It's not-
No,
it's
no,
not-
no.
It's not
Right,
excellent
yeah.
and terrible,
Right. And
there's very
certainly,
good
just
and-
like Andrew was talking about where we are in our free cash, in our classroom things, we tend to be at the lower end, not in the middle, not at the high end of those. And it's.
And we have a football program, and we have a band
But
program, and
I
we have an
will
art
say,
program.
this committee voted 800 to support the school budget without a single question, which I found a little interesting, just not because, I voted for it too, but given how we questioned some things that had just a couple $1,000s, and that's a $68 million large thing. So, yeah, it's interesting. But it's our prerogative. Okay, so next.
So if I may, I'm sorry,
Yes.
just because
Oh, yeah,
I
you
did
wanted,
email it. I'd like to make a
provide
motion to
some
revote.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to revote Article number 20, which is the Zero Bowman purchase, because there's I listened to the presentation, and I also listened to the town hall, the joint session we had, and there's a conversation that didn't happen, although I started it, and Christine and I had some conversation about it, but I wanted to be part of the conversation about the actual spend, and this is the conversation about the Walk-Up Robinson right now has a balance of money, and we also know as a town that we are going to take a much better, more comprehensive look at how much it costs to maintain our public space. I know that this warrant in particular mentions a $25,000 cost for Zero Bowman, but the reality is that's a one-time get it up to a certain condition. It's not an ongoing thing. And in fact, some work was done, and hopefully the conservation director can build on that, or even bring their own perspective to it. But we as a town have to have a serious conversation about what it takes to sustain this. And I think Walk-Up Robinson, it is not adjacent to their mission. It's literally in their mission to do the kind of work to support our public spaces. We also heard that there's additional, more prime potentially property that may be coming on the market that we may want to use money for. And additionally, I asked the question, I still don't know why this year, why now? Like, who's going to sweep in the next year and purchase what is mostly inaccessible wetlands at a place with very few trailheads that get in? So my thought is that there's an opportunity to align the interests and the opportunity that is out there for the Walk-Up Robinson. In addition, for the Conservation Commission to do a comprehensive and thoughtful look at what a sustaining cost would be to maintain our public spaces, and to know how the two would come together. And if this property is still available in a year, and we have an understanding of a plan to go forward, and understand what a very significant financial input might be in terms of Walk-Up Robinson, that there might be an opportunity to ask the question then. I don't know if...
My question would be, we currently applying for a state grant that pays for most of this, and Sudbury trustees who are paying $200,000 of this.
Yep.
The Walk-Up Robinson Trust, 100 and something. If you don't do it now, does that
We
grant
don't know what
might go
changes in
in?
a year. I mean,
Right,
and if we
so-
lose a property...
So I'll just tell you, for
Yep.
me, that it doesn't change my vote, so I guess the question is, are adding your comments to
Yep.
the against is fine, if people
he didn't
really.
actually
He didn't vote.
I didn't
Changes
vote,
there.
I know,
So-
but I
Yep.
don't mind the committee comments, because we discuss these things at many days, and your comment being added to our comments.
No,
But
absolutely.
I guess the question is, just a general question for people, do you feel that this information has changed your vote, or is it just quicker to re-vote?
So it doesn't change my vote, but
Yeah.
I am fully in favor of quickly re-voting
Okay.
to have
I
your vote
agree.
on the
I
record.
second that.
I mean, I think that makes a difference.
Thank you.
At a,
Yep.
you know,
I like that, and it's probably quicker than arguing about not re-voting, which is really my motivation nowadays.
We appreciate you keeping us on track, Walter. As hard as it
I
is.
don't know if we're on track, but.
what number is that?
Okay, this is
Pretty
Article
good.
20, and there happens to be a nice blank space under it because it's funded, I don't remember why, I think it's funded by two sources. Yes, it is. So we actually have a space on the voting chart for another vote. So we're going to re-vote this at 3:14, and we'll report this
Oh,
number
this is the
instead.
ugly one, though. The walk-up Robinson is 132.5. Is that right?
Yeah, so the motion for Article 20 is 132,500 from the Walkup Robinson Trust.
Okay, I got it, I got
And
it.
507,500 for free cash.
Yeah. McMahon, I move to recommend the town vote to transfer $507,500 from free cash and $132,500 from Walkup Robinson Fund for the purpose of acquiring the property at 0 Bowman Street.
Dolan, second.
Dolan, second. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, thank you for your input, and I appreciate you.
Thank you for
You've
the
done a
opportunity.
lot of actually looking into this and digging into Walkup, and I appreciate you doing that on behalf of the committee, too. Prashant?
Ahuja, yes.
Beth?
Blumberg, yes.
Bradley, no?
Blumberg, yes.
Bradley, still no?
Oh, does that count as two?
Hi,
Feels like an
I
argument.
Does Beth count as two yeses?
Brant, no.
10 to 2 or something? Brant, no?
Correct.
Okay,
Bob,
thank you.
yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Shafford, no.
Okay, so we are now at 1, 2, 3. So
Six.
we changed to 630
0.
from 710, and we'll use that number in the book.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Next. Okay, so now we are done with voting, because I'm hoping everybody doesn't want to revote everything.
I want to start
That
at the
was my
beginning.
bigger concern.
Start at the beginning.
Yeah, let's start at the beginning, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Thank you.
Oh, wow, I didn't even see.
We have royalty in the room.
He's still here from Tuesday.
Yeah, he fell in the back. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. I want to go through, thanks to, specifically to Andrew, Jean, and just Jane, who must have stayed up late last night, sent me some updates, so, and I think improved some of the lingo from all you guys on this. I have to find this document. Sorry. And,
Should be in your sent mail, too.
no, I'm not gonna look at it. I have these things in the folder. Okay. We will
He's
vote-
got them all, though, right? Yeah, okay.
I sent him a red line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
last night.
So she sends me this red line at 11:30 that says she's got a few comments and things, nothing that important. I opened it
Except all.
up, and it was red as far as the eye could see. I mean, it was not a few.
When
but
accountants don't
they
know what
were
a few
good.
is,
They were good.
I'm worried about the accountants.
A lot of this is borrowed from other R&Rs in the past, so, okay, 20, yeah, this is the right one, okay. Open it up and then I can share, okay. So now, we're gonna go to the Zoom meeting. And, yeah, here we go, where's the share? Share screen. All right, I want to share the Word doc. Share. Very good. Okay, so this is our recommendation. And everybody has that, so I just want to go through this and see if there were things that specifically we wanted to debate or talk about still.
So
Yep.
I started to write it last night, and
and I decided watching BC was more important, so, silly me. I did have a couple of areas that I'd just like to comment. The first one is the bold, aware of the anticipated significant tax impact. The AFC has worked diligently this season.
Yeah.
What pages are?
Page 2.
Yep.
I mean, what I'd like to be able to say, as a result, we have done something, and to me, we haven't. We've just agreed to pretty much everything that's presented. So, I appreciate the fact that we vetted everything, but I don't know that we've impacted anything.
Well, that's our mission,
Right,
is to vet
right.
and make recommendations. I mean,
Yep.
we can't.
I think I think this is my third town meeting I've been involved in AFC with, and I believe, I don't recall us ever going into as many different things as deeply as we have done this year. So I will agree, but mostly, I mean, Andrew did this study for a while too. He was hoping to find a couple $1,000,000 somewhere, and he came back and he found some odds and ends. But unless you're willing, which the majority of us were not, to essentially cut staff either in schools or in the town, it's hard to make much of an impact. And I feel like, as a committee, this is what, meeting 27 of our fiscal year, but I mean, you gotta subtract out a dozen of them for fall town meeting, but I don't know, we've been meeting a lot and looking a lot, and a lot of you people have done a lot of deeper analysis, so I kind of feel it's true. I didn't find a pot of gold.
But also, even if we had recommended to cut half of the staff, we still would not have done anything except made a recommendation.
Yeah.
Right.
That's all we can do. That's all that's within our purview.
Understood.
Now, other people might take us up on the recommendation, but I hear what you're saying, like, it would be nice if we could claim something. We'll never be able to claim anything.
Yeah.
People will either listen to our recommendation or they won't listen to our recommendation, but that's it. I mean, it's all recommendation.
Okay.
So this is exactly where my feedback was, that just to add to Rod's point, that instead of saying to look for ways, our job is not to look for ways. We are there to recommend. So could we change it to say that to recommend ways to alleviate the tax burden and look for areas?
So change the word look to recommend.
Change the word to look for to recommend, and schools to recommend ways to alleviate.
That's a great change, yeah.
And as long as we're on that page, this is not substantive at all, but on the citizens petition,
Yeah.
where it says we concur with the proposed limited deliberation,
That's
it's an
John's.
expected, I know, it's an expected proposal.
Hey, John, are you definitely making that proposal?
But until he's
But
made
not
it.
until he's made
expected.
it.
The book is published
but it's
before
another
he's
word.
made
I
it.
plan to do it as part of my opening remarks.
Okay, well, let's say expected. And if I put in expected, I can keep going. Okay.
So-
Rod, you have I think you had some other points, so I don't want to cut you off
Sorry,
so
go ahead.
quick.
Oh, okay. Next page.
Yep.
I guess I can't argue it, but the difficulty I have, budget appear reasonable and justified. I agree with considered individually. I don't agree with as a whole, but I think as a committee, we said as a whole. So I don't think we can change that. I do think that we do not, the next paragraph, that we hold articles under free cash to the same levels, standard of need and value as articles that are raised and appropriate. I don't think we do. I think we give more leeway to articles that are using free cash. I may be
I think
wrong.
you're correct. I guess when I wrote this, I was thinking it as a suggestion to town meeting. And I think we do, I mean, many of us do sort of consider it in our recommendations to use free cash, because I look at those items we're buying with the free cash, and they have to be something I really think are worthwhile and not spending frivolously.
I will say, we spent a fair amount of time talking about a few $1,000 use of free cash to stock Sandra Pond this year.
Well, or even all the vehicles that we asked Chris to come in and walk us through every vehicle that's free cash.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I disagree with the suggestion that we don't consider them, right? Because I
Yeah.
have to say that from my perspective, the funding source is sort of tangential, right? I'm not considering the funding source. I'm looking at, wait, do we need, my expectation in the way I approach it, and I think that our town manager and finance director will approach it, is prioritizing the requests and then looking what we can fund from free cash. And I think that how we fund it is secondary. And it's really, we're debt financing larger things. So they probably do get more debate because we're not going to debt finance fish.
No, but I'm saying, we
Right.
spend as much time
Right.
talking about fish as we did
Well,
about
but I don't know
some of the roofs.
So
Yeah.
the fish might, but we didn't talk nearly as long about some of the
But I
small
think
items
we-
as we did the roofs.
I'm just saying, it's a, it's a
But I think
proxy.
it's an
mean,
order
we
of
spent-
magnitude,
we
but you're
spent
right.
time talking about free cash articles.
So I would disagree that we don't consider them the same. I think that
I-
our fish debate shows that
I
we do.
think it's a goal too. I think
I
it
thi- oh,
does make, I do
Yes.
agree, particularly, you do hear occasional comments of people saying, well, it's free cash, it doesn't affect the
Right.
tax rate, as if that's a justification to,
Agreed.
to spend the money. And I think we should be kind of like, no, that's not, it's a good thing it doesn't affect the tax rate, but
Right.
you
But I don't
shouldn't
think I
spend
hear
the
that
money if it's
here.
not
Right.
needed. If it's not something you
I
desire.
mean, I think
the
we
town
give
has.
things, I think we give things like the stocking Sandra Pond a lot of discussion because they're low-hanging fruit, even though some of us still want them and they're not net very expensive. We're discussing them because sometimes we're going to say no to something that is inexpensive because we can't, whereas, when you're discussing, should we have more police officers or more fire trucks or ambulances, there's a certain amount of us who just are like, the town needs them. Yes, we'd like it to be cheaper, but we don't set the prices.
Okay, yeah, it'd be nice if things were cheaper. Okay,
So
so what's next?
my last one was on the thoughts on the community spending and value.
Okay, good. That's
Um,
at the-
Where's that?
the thing.
Which page?
Yeah, I should have put page numbers on these, but they're gonna be wrong once they go in the book anyway, so.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Is it near the end?
It's like
Okay,
halfway.
it is near the end, yeah, okay, good.
There's 9
We're here.
pages.
Oh, yeah.
It's on page, 7 or something. Go ahead. Sorry.
So as we've stated previously, if the managing household tax bill increases as a priority, then going forward, voters should focus on opportunities to balance expectations and pacing concerns.
Yeah, this is, I think this is copied from a previous one. I mean, I don't disagree with it, but I think that voters don't have, I guess they have a huge choice if they want to vote down things, right?
Yeah, I just,
So I
What you're
liked
suggesting, take it out or edit?
The wording was a little bit difficult. I
Yeah.
actually spent a fair amount of time sort of
You cleaned this
trying
up a
to
bit.
reword it last
okay,
night.
all right.
I mean, I like the idea, right? So really what this paragraph is saying is if you're worried about the tax rate, get used to the idea that a reduction in taxes is going to come with a reduction in services,
I like that.
which is essentially what it's saying. And it
Didn't
is sort
say
of a
that.
that is what
It does.
it says in many sentences,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Like,
Last one, making reductions to staffing will affect service level.
I don't love the way it's written, but I get the idea. So what we're trying to say, because everyone says, oh man, we can't possibly raise our taxes $1,000, but also I want all the things. Pick one.
I don't
Do you want a lower tax rate, or do you
But
want?
is it black and white and not gray, as Rod would say?
Well, I don't think they necessarily say they want all those things. They hear the town's recommending them, and
Right.
I don't think most people don't think they have much of a choice.
Well, I don't know.
Ones
So
that show
back
up
to
at
the
town
point of
meeting
schools.
vote
So
for
I
it,
have
Bob.
children in schools, and I appreciate the very small class size. I have a child in special ed, and I very much appreciate the focused attention and the supported classroom that he's in, right? And so those things are important to me, and I know that we're all paying for them. And so if I say, well, I want to pay less taxes, I should get used to the idea that the supported services my child's getting may have to decrease.
I just wanted to add, and I wanted to say the comment.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, that.
I don't disagree that that is a possibility, and that is one interpretation. The criticism I would have for this statement is that it presupposes those are the only two things. There are ways to make things more efficient.
That is
There are
true.
ways
Yes.
to find savings
Yes.
where there's waste. I mean, there are other possibilities here.
But isn't that what we trust Christie as town manager and the select board to oversee?
That
And
is
that
a
we're
level
part
of
of
trust, but
overseeing?
in this statement, we're talking to the constituents, the
Yes.
people that are at town meeting. And whether we trust them is irrelevant. If they disagree with how the town is spending money, they need to hold the people in power accountable.
Yeah, I mean, to Andrew's point earlier, that would be the way to do it. Someone would make a motion on the floor to, and I've seen it happen with the school before. I've never seen it happen with the town budget as a whole, but I've seen it where someone will make a motion on the floor for a lower amount than is proposed for the school budget. It's gotta be within scope.
So I think that's
And then they vote on it. And, frankly, it's like, that's where the individual taxpayer would have agency to do it at town meeting.
And this.
It's too, there's
The
other
schools
ways to do
have-
it by working through the school board and making your,
think it's hard.
comments at the various meetings, but on town meeting floor, that would be how a citizen could make it. And to Andrew's point, it's like, that would then force them to go back and say, okay, we've heard you, we've got to cut, and then they decide where to cut, rather than,
Yeah, I mean,
we think you should cut this thing and that
Right.
thing, and without knowing.
The town budget's more complex
Yeah.
because they're all silos. Whereas
Yes.
the school gets a pot of money and can then make decisions and priorities and
Right.
choices. But if you voted all the town budgets, but voted down, the IT department or something, or cut it in half, then, that money is only, they can't spend IT money from somewhere else. So it's a different, I've often kind of felt like the schools have an advantage of being able to move them, at least within expenses. As this school has an issue, or that school, or something happens, they can shift staff around and things like that.
Well, they very much
Which is
do.
harder to do in the town.
If you
but-
look at the custodians, right, so they have this huge jump in the custodians because they hadn't built that into their budget for last year, so it looks like a dramatic increase because it's really 2 years increase shown in one. Well, they covered it this year. They covered it from somewhere else, and they aren't tied to the way the rest of the town departments are salaries and expenses. They were able to move stuff around and cover it and make it work for a year.
Right.
To your point of it, we said everybody, I don't remember who initially
And
said that everybody gets a 1%.
in the middle of the year, they
But you would-
also make
It's a lot more
decision-
difficult to do it on these more granular budgets. The school department, you say you've got 1% less, figure it out. And hopefully, they figure it out without cutting services to my special ed child, right? Hopefully, they say, okay, well, if we shifted these things, we could do these things more efficient, and they would be forced into sort of an innovative and different strategy. It's a lot harder to do with the granular budgets.
Yeah, and I think some of that, the fact that you have so many silos generates more, you better have enough in each silo, because it's harder to move.
Absolutely.
That probably, you might be able to have, if you could do
Each
slush
silo's gonna be
fund,
much
you
more
could
risk
have, in
averse.
theory, maybe
Yeah.
5% less in all the budgets or something. I don't know. Not an expert, but it seems like
Less
that would be
would close
case.
out to free cash, I know that.
Yes, but that's, less closing out the free cash
Yeah.
can be
Absolutely.
okay, because you, like Andrew
Yeah, no,
said,
absolutely,
you just
yeah.
decrease your habit for free cash.
Right.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
I need to keep my training budget for every year, because if we have training this year, and so every year it closes out, because one year I'm gonna need it, and you just perpetuate
Right.
that problem across all of,
Okay, so what do we want to do with this paragraph? I guess I have to keep us focused. 'cause
So,
we're having a good
To
conversation.
that end, I do think it's a good point. I also think it is phrased pretty harshly. Josh makes a really good counterpoint that I think makes sense.
What's the
I wonder if we really think that this section adds value to our report. And that would be my question, is do we just strike it? Because I don't know that I feel like it adds a ton of value. Or do we do some sort of major rephrasing?
I think Mike, this is largely Mike Peretti's writing still. And he was, I think, at the time in the second paragraph, trying to make the point that it's great, you have these groups that create all these plans, strategic plans, master plan, kind of without any money associated with it. It's a pie in the sky, what do you want in your town? And that if people really want to do all that, what as you said earlier, you can't come back and say, why are my taxes going up if I'm, they said they had this opportunity for a community center, but your taxes are going up next year if you do it. It is. I mean, so, and that meets all those plans, but I don't know.
I think you could
yeah.
strike those first two paragraphs.
Just get rid of them.
Two paragraphs. I mean, if you look at the second one.
I don't have a strong opinion that we can't strike them, but what I would suggest we consider is part of these two paragraphs aimed at voter involvement? Are we
So I
trying
think
to?
the third paragraph is that.
And
that would be
should we
my-
be a little bit more strong in telling the town people that ultimately they're responsible? They're the ones that are voting. They're the ones that are coming to town meeting or not. And it's their power to vote yes or no.
Yep.
So I
So
propose
that-
we, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I propose
want
we
them to be
strike 1 and
accountable.
2,
Yep.
and to that end, maybe we add a little bit more to 3.
So I think to your point, I feel like the paragraph 3 already states very clearly what Josh, you have said and what you have mentioned, that town, just reiterating what's written, right? That they have the clearest view of the cost estimates and tax bill impact projections. So what we are really recommending here is that you take the decision wisely and you have the clearest view of, where the town is spending upon. So I don't see anything different from what paragraph 3 mentions, suggesting to voters that, the town voters to be absolutely, have the information to vote what they want. So I would rather favor, striking of 1 and 2 and keeping
Yeah,
paragraph 3.
I feel like those first two paragraphs have been probably
Overdone.
revised so many
Yeah.
times
Yeah.
that the original meaning is gone.
And rather
Right,
than,
and I think the thing about the addition of staff should be very carefully considered.
Yeah.
We've mentioned in the other places.
Yeah.
rather than wordsmithing with,
Yeah.
like, by committee, because it's 9:10, and
Yeah.
like, we have a lot more substance stuff to go through.
Yeah.
If somebody has a strong feeling, share it. Walter, you've been a fair representative of this, unless
So-
you want to do this on a more granular level.
Well, I got to do this tonight, so.
Oh, I know.
I mean, that's why we're all staying later, because I have to be done.
So,
And we have to approve this and approve other things.
Before we
so.
leave tonight.
Oh,
So
okay,
I'm
so
perfectly
like that-
happy,
that was
in
the
order to keep
recommendation,
us
okay.
moving,
Strike
then
the
our
first two.
recommendation is we take out the 2 paragraphs.
Yep.
Okay.
And for now, then we would leave the others. So are there other substantive changes that people would like? Prashant?
So not in that, but page number 2, I did have a suggestion. I'll go with the easy one first. So I think the paragraph where it suggests largest expenditure that Westborough makes is for employee salaries and benefits. I think the numbers that you have taken is the proposed budget for 2020, for 25 fiscal year. It's not the current. So if we could mention that, because it looks like as if the numbers are current numbers, they are not the current numbers. I confirmed with the budget book. These are the proposed and not the current numbers of,
Employees?
yes.
They weren't adding any.
So the 726 and 224, what I saw, these numbers, they were
Yeah.
of,
We're adding employees, we're adding
Oh, okay,
proposing
you're
to
saying
add
the
community
224?
center and
But I
Okay,
think that
so
this is
can we
what
say-
should be
Can
said.
we say this budget
Proposes.
proposes?
exactly,
Okay,
Yeah.
so the largest expenditure is penny.
being
Westborough,
proposed or something like that.
this budget proposes,
Exactly.
Westborough employs approximately 950 full-time.
Right, everything
Okay.
else is accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting, because I don't know how many people know how many teachers there are versus how many people in the town government or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
we asked about that the other day, and the numbers, nobody knew. I mean, we had guesses, but, so I found
This was
those.
good.
and-
Yep.
and
Where
put
did you
them in.
find the 91?
That's in the school book.
In the school book.
It was
school
in there, because I
budget
had
book.
asked about it when we were reviewing it with them
Yeah,
and didn't get that
and
number,
they-
and I
and they
missed it in
point
the
out
book.
that there's so many full-time equivalents, but there's really only this many that are on the levy. I think that's fair
Yeah,
to show.
I'd question it because I think it's important, right? So when we look at the police ones that we converted from other sources, right? So if the grant funding for these runs out, then in the future, we're posed with eliminating positions or moving them to the budget. So I think it's an
They're
important
not
number, and I'm
all
glad.
grants. Some of these
Right.
are community education funds.
Right. My
which-
point is just
Yeah,
that
yeah, you
there's
gotta be
always that
careful.
looming who knows,
Yeah.
and we don't really talk about it. So I was just
Yeah.
glad you had included that number because I do
Yeah.
think that it poses some, the thing is, we're not gonna lose, even the grant ones, we're not gonna lose all of the grants. So we never run the risk of all 91, but have, okay, I mean, it's slim.
But an
possibility,
occasional
but-
grant dies.
Yeah. and
Well, I
others
mean, they're
get added.
constantly circulating
But,
through
but
grants,
again,
which is
some,
the nature.
a lot of those, I think, are from the paid kindergarten and things
Right.
like that. That's
Which
who's
makes
covering
sense.
it, because there's you know, you can pay for
Yep.
pre-K or whatever. Okay. Others.
So that was one. The other, a more conversational one was around deleting this line in the note on citizen petitions. In the last paragraph, we say that our time and our democracy are best served by providing a fair platform for all ideas, but then we are also commenting upon them as frivolous and without merit. I would not see a value for adding that line. I would just remove that probably and just keep.
Which line do you want to?
However, upon review, we found the majority to be brought in this year are frivolous and without merit. I just think that the fact that we are saying that they impose an additional burden of time and effort, and these look more like polls rather than,
That's enough.
that's enough. So we don't need to call them out as.
I disagree. I think that line is
Yeah.
important to have in there, and I would personally make it stronger. And I think there are
I mean,
two
this is
individuals in this. Go ahead, Beth.
This, if each article takes 15 minutes, this is wasting 3 hours times several hundred people sitting in town meeting for articles that most of the people in town meeting
Still there?
are horrified by. I mean, they're not just opposed, these are ideas that are so strongly negative to most of us. They are frivolous. I mean, they're, and I am all for free speech. And if there'd only been 1 or 2 articles, I would have been, oh, that's a real bummer that we have to sit through this, but I will give it all the time. 10 exceeded my patience.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I guess just a consensus here. Do you want to leave that sentence in or not? Prashant was in favor of removing, but.
I would, in a typical circumstance, be in agreement with removing it, but because of the nature of these,
Oh,
which
yeah.
I think is Jean's point, I think it's worth the sort of repetitive
If they
reinforcing
if they
our
weren't
point.
like that, I wouldn't have
Right.
put, I mean, we didn't put this in when there was like one citizen
Right.
petition. We
Right.
didn't even
Well, but
mention
this,
them.
my point is it's more the content. I think that
Yeah.
the content of them is worth the extra line to make it
Okay.
really clear that,
And I really feel
Twice,
I
make
really
it
feel they
clear.
were designed to create a waste of time and
Yeah.
chaos and.
somebody said, I'm pretty sure they're trolling us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is like internet trolls.
Okay,
that
so
should
we're
have
agreement on
town
that.
hall.
Want to
Yeah.
move on? Anybody else have other things that they need on this? Okay, so now we need to go, sorry, I gotta find the other documents.
So I have one other I don't know where this fits in the discussion.
We're about to talk
Uh,
about the comments on the articles, so
Yeah,
would that help?
yes.
Because I think that's what you wanted to add. So we're now
Yeah.
on, so the ones that we haven't done is the operating budget that I left a note here because we might have removed budgets and it would be well worth noting that. So I will eliminate that line, I think, well, because it's just a note. But now that we've done with the budget, are there, I decided rather than, so in the budget book, just to give you guys the knowledge, there'll be each line of the budget and how the AFC and Select Board voted for it.
Voted.
But I didn't really want to add comments on each one because from what I could tell, and I wasn't in the opposition, I think, on them, but the minority opinion generally was pretty similar on a broad range of them, which broadly broke into not the right year to add people, let's hold off add people, and then there were some where I think a couple members don't like the stormwater tax, so if it was increases that, you know, because we're increasing this because we need more administrative functions and stormwater things, those got negative votes. So, it's just, if there's another line or something, or another reason people have, my preference was to keep that simple, and that
Do a single statement?
yeah, so this statement will be at the top of the thing, but then you will see the votes, so the ones that were voted only 5-4 are obviously not as supportive as the others. And I think, so if someone asks, why did AFC vote against it? I mean, first of all, we've kind of mentioned it here, because I think a lot of people were voting against those added positions because you're looking ways to save money this year. And so I think it is covered, but certainly we could have, a couple of us are welcome to answer that question on the floor, but at least we have some notes here, and I think you'd be comfortable answering that, and I think others would.
I don't think we need
as
it
well.
for each one.
Yeah, okay,
I would
good.
agree.
All right, good, plus that would take forever, and I wouldn't be able to do it.
So are we removing a bunch of the comments then because of what you're going for, or?
No, that was only Article 8.
That's Article 8.
Specific to the
Just
budget.
Article 8? Oh, okay.
Article 8, so 8
There's only
is
gonna be
all
one
the
comment.
budgets that we
Got it.
have.
Thank you.
We had like 12 different
Yep.
votes on, even though, instead of one.
Yeah.
Yep.
My only point. Okay, so, moving through, we did all this stuff earlier, okay. Hastings, we're just gonna say, we're gonna report our recommendation at town meeting. We aren't able to vote, so, okay, fine. And we should be prepared then at, we'll meet at 8:30 in the morning and have that vote, unless, an option is to, meet Thursday night and just discuss those, but I don't know if I'll have the motion or not, but if I do.
Saturday morning seems fine.
I think
Okay.
Yeah.
we can all vote it in.
Good.
a
Okay.
couple
vote for
minutes
Saturday
before.
morning.
Okay, very good. Article 16, municipal carbon, we're gonna report at town meeting. Golf club building, we now are recommending the vote in favor.
Unanimous.
Yes, so I mean, we think the town wants this study to be done, and we think it's a reasonable way or something.
We have an underutilized asset that we need to.
Underutilized
Find-
asset.
Find a way to move forward with.
Well, and I think it's worth noting, I like the approach
I
to
like that.
evaluating the underutilized asset. Because I'm not necessarily just in favor of spending money, I like the way we're approaching it that gives us options on how to best utilize it.
You can't-
Yeah,
you
and-
can't
and
say
maintain
utilize an
it,
underutilized
whatever.
asset, because that's not gonna work.
Right, no, the second part was
use-
just my,
Use an underutilized asset.
asset, yes.
But also,
Or an
isn't there a component of it that's gonna
Unusable
help?
asset, which is what it is now.
Well, they're still using part of it.
Yeah,
Okay.
golf.
Yeah, all right,
seven- yeah.
fair enough.
A good approach,
Birds have found a place to nest in it. so.
and we're gonna study it or something.
Yep.
Okay, if anybody wants to send me words, that's okay too.
Or how
It's
about
gotta be
largely
tonight.
unusable,
What's that?
largely unusable asset.
Okay,
I don't know.
yes, all right, so, Article 20, this is, it's something I wrote since the last time we reviewed these, so I'm just throwing it out. At
Great.
Zero Bowman, this is something that Andrew might like to have added more to. It just says right now the minority statement is prefer to acquire different property, which is what somebody said, maybe Rod. But you had other points you'd like to.
Yeah, do you want me to, I can send them to you, like, right after this meeting, if that's okay?
That'd be great.
I agree with Andrew.
All right.
Whatever Andrew says is great.
Uh-oh.
Acceptance of easements, that's new. It was pretty uncontroversial, because it was 800. Sidewalk easement, same thing.
Yep.
Nobody has complaints. Amend zoning bylaws, it's also not controversial. Caribbean Festival is now defeat. I kind of guess I threw in that assumption, but this is 800. And I,
900.
900.
900. It was
Okay.
today.
Yeah, and I think
Um,
that description is,
Yeah, to me,
Perfect.
it avoids the trap of us, we're not supporting it because we hate the idea. It's like, hey, you guys haven't done your work.
well, and I think that is very important,
Yes.
right? That it is not that we're
Right.
opposed to an Afro-Caribbean festival, and to some extent, I'm saying that right now, just
Yeah.
because I think we need to publicly say that as a group. It is
Yeah.
not because we are
Thank you.
opposed to an Afro-Caribbean festival, but the proponents of this have done zero planning or due diligence in how to host any sort of event.
Right.
And so to
And we don't
allocate
wanna
funds
give
to
them
an
freely.
unplanned event doesn't make any sense. And
It
I
makes,
just,
makes the fish look really plain.
makes the fish look like a really good idea. But I just,
You
I know
thought the
that
fish
we
were
kind of
bad.
all agree. I just wanted to make sure we
That's what I
publicly.
come down to, $10 a fish.
Okay.
They could have come up with a reduced budget.
Oh, you know what? I screwed up because I'm sharing, it's on my screen, but I'm not sharing the right one. Right?
Okay.
I gotta share the new document, I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
you can't
I'm
see
sorry
it.
for
We
all
can't
those,
see it anyway.
for all our fans out
None of us have
there.
good enough eyesight.
Yeah, that's true.
I can squint really hard and see over there.
Oh, I got a bad angle on that one.
This is draft. Comments, okay. I'm gonna share that.
I could
was
see
just
when I was
wondering why
looking at it earlier.
the stuff
Chrissy
on the
was
screen didn't match what
This
we
is
were
better.
showing. Okay, so that, all right. Article, the rest of the articles, are there additional comments on any of them that people want to change? 34, 35, 36?
Well, there was one that I said at one
Yeah, I
point.
did change that one a
Okay.
lot from when you didn't like it.
Yeah, I was like, I don't like
agree.
it, but I'm too tired to fix it.
This is the Townie Beanie Award. I said the concept now, instead of saying a specific group. It's a monetary award using town funds to benefit only a specific group of residents based on their birthplace and ability to have children. It's, you know, basically a bad idea. And if legally allowed, is not in the best interest of the town. Because that's specifically
Yeah.
what this is doing. It's a group that's very specifically picked because they happen to have been born and are,
In a
have the
home-
wherewithal and
In a home
desire.
birth at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This would require multiple generations of home births.
Yeah, well, that too. They would, if it was ever really written, they probably would have solved that problem. Okay, while he's thinking, Beth, did you have an article you wanted to say something more about, or?
No,
different?
because I realized I liked what Jane said,
found it.
and I basically wanted
So
to say
the-
very
the
similar.
article states that the goal, the overarching goal, is cultural longevity and shared values. I mean, to me, that's a real call out on this one. And
For
maybe
which
nobody feels
article?
The same way, but
That's the dog whistling.
that is a dog whistle to me, and to not
Oh, not to say anything?
to
about that?
not make a statement about that
Okay,
as
so
a
what would you
committee.
What would you say?
Well, first of all, do people agree with that sentiment? Because if nobody agrees with that sentiment,
I mean,
It's not
You're talking about the
So-
townie baby?
So I agree. My question is, how in the weeds do we have to get to explain why that is problematic? And
offensive.
do we want to get that in the weeds, right? So the idea of this shared cultural, right, so we would have to explain what that implies and why we take issue with the statement in order to, and I don't think any of us want to write an essay.
I would agree with less is more here.
So, I mean, I absolutely agree with you. My one comment on any of these is, do we need stronger language? Or are we comfortable? And this is that same sort of feedback, right? Like, we're not really calling it out. The only problem with that one is that it is not as obvious as so like the anti-racist one, like where it
Yeah.
says we would like to be more racist, that is clearly and obviously on the face problematic.
yep.
This one, I am
which I think
concerned
Andrew
we
ended up
have
writing some pretty
to-
strong language for.
Well, and-
Right.
which I think is appropriate.
Yeah.
But this one, and so I agree, and I am all for trying to, but it's just a question of how concisely can we do it?
And couldn't we put in one sentence
Yes.
about how
You
the,
can write one.
yeah, but
No.
how the, you know, the diversity of the town increasing over the years as new people come in is a value.
What if we just put a
And not
statement
something we want to discourage?
that we value the diversity that is gained, right, from a new population? We could phrase it better than that, but something along those
Yeah.
lines. So don't get into the weeds of what they've said, but rather, we value diversity in our community, which is improved by
How about
You
it's,
got- and
it's in
welcome-
direct
and
violation
welcome
with,
members of the community.
Westborough's, I don't know if it's mission, but to be a vibrant, inclusive, safe, attractive, connected, and engaged community for a lifetime.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
while,
We find
In-
this to be
In direct violation
conflict
with, direct conflict with.
Hold on.
Our
Yeah,
mission
I like
statement.
it. And you can copy and paste it straight in, Walter.
and I will tell you that the people who would favor an article like this are gonna tell you that's not what they're saying at all. In fact, the defense was, this is for everybody of every ethnicity, and they should do it across all of the towns. So I'm entirely supportive of that,
Yep.
but that this has cloaked in the kind of pointy-hatted vagaries.
It's right on
that-
westboroughmass.gov. It's kind of the
I
tagline.
understand what you're saying, but I
Yep.
still think we should try.
Sure.
Oh,
And-
email,
and-
right?
Yeah, send it to
Yeah.
me, that'd be good. Okay, probably good enough. All right.
Thanks, Walt.
So now I need a motion, like I sent in the email. I don't know if you printed it out, did you? No. The one that says, so we can print the booklet.
Oh,
How much money do we need to spend?
Oh, no, that's second. First, I want to do the fact that that
Oh,
Jean and
so
I
you
are
want the
allowed to
motion about
actually,
the edit?
that we approve it.
okay,
yeah.
McMahon.
Okay,
I move to approve the Advisory Finance Committee booklet as amended and edited at tonight's meeting with the provision, the typographical and formatting changes, including verifying the consistency and correct use of amounts, which do not impact the substance, can be made by the chairman, the vice chair, and his or her designee.
second,
Okay.
Blumberg second.
Motion and
Right.
second. The effect of this allows Jean and I to finish all these things and then work with Celia to get it printed as what we things and not rewrite it completely. My intent would be to, I'll send out the drafts as we get them. What I will do with Celia tomorrow is send her what we're updated. She's gonna pull together what she can on Friday. Remember, it's a shorter day. Send it to me. I'll have the weekend to check everything, because it's things. And then Monday, it's gotta go to the printer. So I will send it back to her Monday morning for finalizing and creating a PDF based on that. Okay, so that's that. Now, the next thing to
We
decide.
actually have to vote it.
We should vote.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Maybe that's what he was gonna say, guys. You know?
Yeah. All right. Michelle.
Ahuja, yes?
Beth?
Blumberg, yes.
Bradley, yes?
Brant, yes.
Clap yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Shafford, yes.
Okay, so we're 9-0 in favor of doing that. Okay, next, how many books do we want? I sent a note on that. I'm thinking sort of in the range of 375 to 400 sort of thing. I'm wondering, I don't know what you think, but you think this will end up going to a second night even potentially with the length of it? It's hard to know.
Yeah.
But that having some extra books is not particularly expensive, but it's better than having too few. We are working with Owen in the town manager's office. We're going to have a tiny URL. So not only will we post this to the town website ahead, probably on Tuesday, but at town meeting, there'll be one of those things or signs or something telling people that, you know, if they're coming with their tablet or their computer, they can follow along on that.
So-
That hopefully reduces some, although I couldn't probably read it on a small phone.
And I know that we don't like to overprint, but nonetheless, just know historically, the extra ones are used by the
Adult.
social studies classes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And this one,
I
and
thought
this
it was
one in
used by a goat
particular.
farm for food. No, they
Right.
actually use them in classes.
Yeah, and so this one in particular, I would be less afraid of having extras because, man, I can see school going to town on this, discussing these articles, especially the citizens'
Well, only if that
petitions.
article about them being allowed to discuss things doesn't pass. But
Well, okay,
I do-
but, you know,
I do, in the interest of disclosure, tell you the reason I increased the expense budget in the recommended AFC budget for next year is we are likely to have to do a transfer in April to pay, because we'll be short on our expense budget with this set of books. So you could say Mike set us up with a too small a budget, but I won't say that.
400
Except for
sounds
that
about
you
right.
did.
The 400, we'll just go for the 400.
So-
I think that seems reasonable.
Is that 400 because people are coming from all of the articles? Because most of this seems like a fairly vanilla, like, thing, so.
Right,
Well,
well, you often get, like, I think a typical town meeting is 250-ish
Yeah.
people, right?
Yeah.
But if there's some of these articles that
So-
are gonna draw in a pile, do they need,
So, which is what gets me to the
Yeah.
question about especially the articles at the end are the most likely to carry over to the second day, which is it possible to do a smaller run of books because we're probably, I believe we're probably going to be looking at the 250 and 300 for the main, but just do a bunch of leaflets on, like, a couple of pages printed for the articles, so that if we do carry over, we're not carrying over an entire book that we have to support a second day for. It's really just the petitions.
Well, there's
Can
actually
we
no
ask
requirement
John
that we hand out anything in reality, because the motions are
Okay.
read at town meeting and put up. The good part about the book is people can, if they do come for an article that they normally don't come for, there's a part in there where John talks about town meeting, there's parts where they can read about the budgets and the finance and maybe learn more about it. It's
Okay, no, I know the
I'd
books.
also
well.
say
Okay.
for most of the people, this is the only interaction they'll have with all of the work we've done through the course of the year. I mean, that's.
You
is
mean not
through the
everyone's
book.
watching us?
What's that?
Not everyone's watching?
So, not everyone's watching.
like now at night.
And honestly, to
Right
save a
now,
few
live.
bucks doesn't seem worth it to keep the book out of their hands.
Okay.
It's the only way they're
Yeah,
gonna see it.
Beth has a comment.
Yeah, I would just like to ask, since John Arnold is part of the audience, what his anticipation is for attendance.
Yeah, Walter asked me that, and I answered, it's very, very hard to judge.
That's fair.
I typically judge based on what's normal, which, as we said, is usually 250, 300 or so. However, the election turnout, I think, was much higher, last week, or I guess Tuesday. Seems like last week to me. And I don't know if that's going to impact how many people turn out or not. So, I mean, as Walter's alluded to, we're going to try to make up for any shortcoming if we run out by having easier act, since my belief is most people bring phone, tablet, laptop, or whatever. And if the PDF is somewhat readable by having QR codes and, tiny URLs, hopefully people can get by that. So, I'm not expecting as many as like for the lights at the high school or for the library votes. But it wouldn't surprise me if for some of the meeting, 500 people showed up, but I don't know.
I would hope that with all that you hear about people being upset about the $900 increase or $800 increase or whatever it's going to end up being, that people would show up and at least listen or participate. I mean.
I'm going to say out loud, the random chatter on my particular little street of Westborough, there are people who have never come to town meeting who want to come because they're just appalled by the citizens' petitions. So I would rather have, enough booklets than not enough for first-time comers to see. I mean, I totally accept the idea that the tiny URL and a QR code is going to appeal to a certain population, but there's a certain population who I think is reacting to the negativeness of the recent election and these warrant articles.
I don't see going to 500. Okay, thank you, Beth.
McMahon, I move that we print 400 books.
Dolan, second.
Okay. Any further discussion? I think that's a good number. I think we printed 500 at the fall town meeting, expecting a larger crowd, and I think there were a fair number left over. So I'm comfortable with the 400, and I think we'll be kind of close to budget anyway.
Do we have a guesstimate of the cost of printing 400?
I
Or the
did
number of
some
pages?
estimates, but there's no real point in mentioning it. I think we'll be within a few $100s of our budget, is my guesstimate.
Okay, because in the past,
Right.
we've always said the, sort of limit in the budget, but okay, in the motion.
Yeah, but it's hard for me
We don't know how many
Okay,
pages the
that's
book's
fair.
gonna be yet,
Yeah,
for example.
yeah. So I was guessing it's longer
Okay.
because there's so many articles. Okay, let's vote.
Ahuja, yes.
Blumberg, yes.
Brant, yes.
Clap, yes?
Dolan, yes?
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Stafford, yes.
Okay. Is there anything else? I don't think so. I
We
think I
did the
just,
minutes already,
I
right?
did the minutes. We just have to do these edits. If you're gonna send me something after the meeting, send it to me.
But it has to
And
have no
then-
substance.
Okay, oh, other important thing is, I've canceled Monday's meeting by not posting it. But there's no real reason for us to meet again Monday, because the thing will already be at the printers. And, you know, okay. So, I will keep my eye out, whether we need a meeting Thursday, just in case, who knows? But that would have to get posted by Tuesday afternoon, so. I don't anticipate, because I think everybody here felt we could vote a couple of things before town meeting. So in that case, we may not meet again until town meeting. Please arrive so that you can be at our table at 8:30. So you want to be there a little bit before that, because I'd like to
Checking
get
in.
that over with. I'd rather we're done with our business part, and then we can chill out while we wait for 9 o'clock or whenever. If there are huge crowds, sometimes it starts later, but that would be good to get
And just a
everybody
reminder
there.
that the Women's Club probably will have a bake sale?
They should. I don't.
I sure hope
I
so,
don't
'cause it's a long
think
day
any reason
without
why they
sugar.
wouldn't, because they're consistent.
Right.
And I'm understanding is that there will be an option to purchase lunch. And you guys don't get the same emails I do. John's been working all this stuff, but, and he did mention, I think, some of this, but the idea is we probably have a dinner break if the town meeting so votes, for like an hour and a half, 2 hours kind of thing. But lunch, you could sneak off when there's an article that is in the mud or something that you didn't particularly care. And then go grab some food, or bring your own food. I think you're just supposed to mostly eat outside the area. You know, don't pull out some huge sub at our table.
Oh, come on.
That was the impression I got from John.
Pizza.
John, do we know if
I
there's
think
going
we-
to be childcare for this meeting?
Yes, there are people aggressively working on babysitting, and we're trying to make sure we have enough, either Honor Society or Girl Scouts, and we're also trying to see if we can get an adult volunteer to sort of show parents with children where it is and give them what the guidelines are and things like that. So I'm hoping to publicize that more next week. But there's a commitment so far that there will be some babysitting childcare, and just trying to figure out how many people can do it, and trying to make clear everyone when the meeting starts, stops, and stuff like that. So
Thank
Okay,
you.
and then
so just expect there to be some, and then I'm doing everything I can to make it happen. It's
Also-
not really my responsibility, but since the woman who used to do such a good job of moved out of town, I can't make it happen, but I can try to nudge everybody to make it happen. And so far, the school's in agreements. I've got some volunteers working on it. I just don't have all the details yet.
Great, thank you.
Very good. And as far as after town meeting, I don't anticipate a meeting, and other than we will need to maybe vote to pay that bill, because that's probably within 30 days of having the printing done, that we would meet sometime in April, end of April or late April. And John will also be contacting everybody, because he likes doing a one-on-one with all the members post-town meeting, probably during April as well. And then we'll probably have a meeting, sort of to debrief as a group on that. And then things should be slow until we hit transfer time. Okay, so appreciate everybody's efforts this year, and we're on the finish line here, so.
And thank you for me too. I know this time of year is always stressful. Everybody's got their taxes to work on. They've got this to work on. They got their real work and whatever. So on behalf of all the voters who look at your report and recommendations, and on behalf of me as the appointing authority, I want to thank you all for your work, and thanks for sticking with it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, the good thing about town taxes is they don't make you calculate them. They send you a bill.
Thank you.
Yeah, whereas the federal and state makes you calculate.
Guess what's getting bigger?
We're overdue on a motion to adjourn.
Stafford, motion to adjourn.
Clap second.
Ahuja, yes.
Blumberg, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Brant, yes.
Clap, yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Shafford, yes.
We are adjourned. Thank you, Westboro TV. Good night, all.